In a world where martial arts are the path to success with thousands of active practitioners, our protagonist Yang Chen is just another simple low-level apprentice among his peers. However, one day he will receive a magical book that will teach him the way to grow and make a name for himself on the continent. As his first act, our hero will impose respect in the training center where he is. And then Yang, along with his brother Jian, will tread the path to become as strong as possible. Amid the challenges, monsters will appear, and people will try to harm our hero. But as the chosen one to inherit the arts of the ancestral dragon, the boy will not fall easily. In Sharp Song City in the Celestial Sky Province, located in the eastern region, this story begins. In a very famous temple, a young lady complains to a boy named Yang Chen. This is because he drew some embarrassing poses of her in a magazine to sell at the academy. In response, the boy shamelessly informs her that because of her beauty, everyone wants to buy an album with her pictures. In this case, the girl comments that he does these things to avoid training, but in any case, the internal student's exam is approaching. Therefore, if the boy doesn't train, he might end up being expelled. Yang in turn mentions that he has already trained with his older sister, and with his new technique, he will definitely pass. However, soon some boys appear to mock the idea that Yang has mastered the vigorous wave fist as he was hospitalized for 3 years. In this case, the redhead says she wants to see for herself if what her colleague is saying is true. Thus, she invites the hero to practice in a rather peculiar way with deadly whips. Seeing this, the protagonist asks the girl to calm down as his spirit is very powerful, and this might end up hurting her. But of course, neither the young lady nor the extras took this warning seriously. Anyway, the girl remembers that Yang said he has a martial spirit, so she asks if the boy really knows what that is. In response, he proudly says that the martial spirit is the symbol of a celestial Taoist. Few cultivators have one, but those who do are considered the strongest between heaven and earth. In this case, the young lady realizes that her junior is quite informed, and Yang proudly repeats that this is because it is his duty as a celestial Taoist. However, once again, a laugh can be heard, but this time from a different person. Suddenly, a bully appears and recalls the hero's hospitalization to support the argument that Yang is lying. Then he claims that the protagonist is just a useless trash who doesn't understand his own reality. However, the boy is very confident in his abilities and doesn't let himself get irritated. In any case, the boy continues to provoke Yang, telling him to show his martial spirit since he claims to be a celestial Taoist. Seeing this, the young lady says that Su Lang is already exaggerating, but the boy is determined to put the hero in his place. Then, naturally, his colleagues start boasting as Su Lang is at his peak in the second layer of the body-strengthening domain. With this, the boy charges our hero with all his strength, and unexpectedly, he is repelled with a single blow. In response, both the young lady and the warriors share the same impressed expression, and Yang remains still after his powerful blow, showing that he wasn't joking when he revealed his powers. At this moment, the young lady called out to her colleague in desperation, but all she could see was Yang's serious expression. In this case, she said she would be rooting for the boy to increase his cultivation and return as an internal disciple. So given the trust placed in him by his older sister, the boy thanks her for the advice. Therefore, now the boy can leave with his morale higher than ever, leaving all the disciples impressed. However, suddenly another person appears and 2 girls become immensely infatuated with the man. This is Jian Wufi, the most powerful external student in the region, and inevitably, he encounters Yang. Unexpectedly, Jian is quite happy when he sees his big brother in front of him, and the hero quickly responds with a hug. Striking up a conversation, the protagonist informs him of everything that happened during the day and says he left Lei Qinglin in love. However, Jian doesn't quite believe the story about the older sister being in love with the boy. In this case, the hero explains that it's because his big brother wasn't there when everything happened. But he believes that this whole thing with Lei Qinglin will make Mu-Xu jealous. Therefore, Jan recalls that Mu still doesn't know about Yang's conquest, and this makes the 2 head off to tell her. Later in Yu Muxu's courtyard, suddenly a strange girl appears, ordering the 2 warriors to stay still. The woman scares our hero quite a bit, so Jian steps forward to talk to the younger sister, Shua. Seeing this, the girl asked in a very intimidating manner if something had happened. And already out of patience, the hero told the little monster to stop meddling in other people's affairs and leave. In this case, the woman responded by cursing the boy and in addition said that Mu didn't want to be seen walking with Yang. However, Yang refused to believe the woman's words, saying he would only believe it if it came from Mu herself. And just at that moment, Mu-Xu appeared to resolve the issue with the visitors. Taking the lead in the conversation, Jan asked if Mu-Xu had really told the guard to stop them from entering. In response, the girl reiterated those rude words that the guard had said earlier. In this situation, our hero accepts what's happening and turns to leave. Then before they go, Jan simply says he hopes Mu-Xu won't regret this decision in the future. Without delay, the 2 boys leave, and later, they go to a certain place in the mountains. In this place, the hero begins to cultivate in full concentration and unexpectedly accesses the secret art of the primordial demonic dragon. This pulls him out of his deep meditation to closely examine what is happening. This secret art was the inheritance of his martial spirit, and just by looking at it, you could feel the immense power. So the protagonist decides to open it, but unfortunately, his power only allows him to cultivate the first chapter. Still, with this inheritance, he will be able to eliminate his enemies and ascend to the heavens, so he begins to practice. Suddenly, something starts falling from the sky, and Jan quickly asks what is happening. Turning around, he notices that a strange blue energy is surrounding his friend's body. Yang, on the other hand, is focused on his cultivation, absorbing all the spiritual energy from the garden. It is said that celestial Taoists are divided by attributes, with most having only one, unlike the rare ones who can have more. With spiritual energies, a fire celestial Taoist can only absorb fire energy, making it impossible to absorb others. However, this means that the hero is a celestial Taoist who can use all attributes. Obviously, this discovery becomes a source of joy. From a distance, Jian appears, asking why he is so happy. Without delay, the hero explains that from now on, he will be able to protect his little battle brother. In any case, the protagonist realizes that the capacity of his martial spirit to devour spiritual energy is absurd. With that, after absorbing all the energy in the garden, the hero suggests that the two of them climb the mountain. This is because there is no more spiritual energy left in this place, but on the mountain, they can have much more to cultivate. So with little time left until the inner student exam, the two head to Sharpsong Mountain. When they arrive, our hero sits down and begins cultivating with the skills he has learned. However, Jan couldn't understand how his brother managed to learn such a terrifying method. That's because apparently Yang was absorbing the sun's spiritual energy, something only a celestial Taoist can do. At this moment, the hero advances to the second layer of body strengthening mastery. And though Jian is quite impressed, the boy knows he must also work hard not to fall behind. After some time cultivating, he awakens and begins to notice a very strong smell. Turning around, he realizes that it is coming from his brother, so the boy goes to his aid. However, he couldn't have imagined that Yang was actually going through the process of advancing to the third layer. It is said that to advance to this stage, one must eliminate all impurities from the body and strengthen the flesh. And while it took Jian 3 months to accomplish this, his brother did it in less than a day. However, Yang was still human, and after all that training, he was starving. In this case, Jian quickly went out to find something for the two of them, leaving the hero alone. After a few minutes, the boy brought back a twisted horned bull, which would be enough to satisfy them. Naturally, they cooked the food, and the protagonist didn't wait even a second to start eating. After a few minutes, all the bull's meat was eaten, but the hero was still feeling a strange hunger. Then, noticing that odd behavior, Jian approached and asked if it was a problem with his martial spirit. And before he could even say anything, the boy's powers started leaking out, creating a massive tornado. With that, after a few minutes, Yang returned to normal and a few dozen trees had been absorbed. In this way, our hero's hunger was satisfied, and fortunately, Jan managed to hide behind a rock. In any case, now the protagonist is feeling amazing. And changing the subject, his companion comments on Yang's immense talent for advancing 2 layers in succession. Thetni suggests that the hero try punching something to test his power. Soon, the protagonist approaches a tree and prepares for his primordial dragon punch, which causes immense destruction. The punch made a perfect hole inside the tree, and unexpectedly, it turned out to be a fire attribute strike. Obviously, this also surprises Yang as his fire attribute Qi fused with true Tig, creating the true solar flame. In any case, Jian notices that it's getting late and calls his brother to head back. However, the hero thinks it's better to find a cave and spend the night to continue cultivating in the morning. So the two keep walking normally until suddenly, the protagonist stops after sensing something. With his hands, Yang parts a bush and stumbles upon something that leaves him very embarrassed. That's because he managed to peek at a very beautiful girl during an intimate moment of bathing. Quickly, his battle brother also comes over to see what Yang is looking at in the bush. And being someone very innocent, the boy screams in surprise, but his mouth is quickly covered by the hero. Even with that attempt to keep silent, the girl still realizes she's not alone. In this case, she stands up and starts yelling, asking who's hiding and watching her. Within a few seconds, the girl gets dressed and slowly starts approaching the bush. However, fortunately, the girl hears the sound of a land bear and leaves. Upon hearing it too, Jan advises that the two should flee as quickly as possible. However, the hero is determined to take a look at what a land rage bear really is. So since the girl went after the bear, there was no reason for them not to follow as well. Meanwhile, the bear starts destroying everything and the girl from before joins the fight. Yang, now paying more attention, realizes that the girl is actually Qian Lingxi. In this case, he decides to help her, but Jian explains that with those injuries, it won't take long for the bear to die on its own. And inevitably, that's what happened, as the bear was just a cub, and the girl finished it off without much difficulty. Thus, with the fight over, she asked if the two boys were ready to show themselves. Then Yang stepped out from behind his hiding place, feeling quite embarrassed, and greeted Lingxi. In this case, the girl remembers that the hero is the one people often call trash, and is happy to be remembered. Changing the subject, Lingxi asks if Yang was the pervert spying on her body at the lake. And with true boldness, the hero denies everything, saying they were just passing by when they heard the bear and decided to help. With that, the protagonist adds, saying that Lingxi is his goddess, but she isn't so convinced. That's because she's already heard Yang speak poorly of her many times. In any case, the girl warned that if she found out the boy was lying about the lake, she would kill him. Then, after Lingxi left, the hero asked what bad things he had said about the girl. And Jian reminded him that 3 years ago, when they entered the academy, Yang said that Lingxi would become an evil person because of her personality. In this case, the hero remembers that he really said that, but didn't expect it to cause her any trauma. Anyway, Jian asked if the boy still thought the same about her as he could propose to her. But in response, Yang stated that with his martial talent, Lingxi would be just a pastime compared to the many women who will want him. 15 days later, both our hero and Jian kept training until they managed to reach a village. While walking through the place, Yang complains that despite his technique being good, it keeps destroying his clothes every time. In this case, the boy tells the hero not to get discouraged, as this same art made him reach the peak of the 5th layer in just 15 days. Having said that, Yang manages to see the bright side of his technique and feels proud of himself once again. In any case, the boy remembers that they need to hurry, as the rules of the exam will be announced today in the central courtyard. And later, in the central courtyard of the academy for internal students, the young lady from before is waiting. Then, within a few seconds, the 2 boys also arrived at the place very well dressed. Noticing Yang's presence, some people begin gossiping about him being the boy who became a celestial Taoist. However, they conclude that even though he is one, Yang would still need to train to develop further. For this reason, the gossips believe that the hero won't be able to pass the exam, unlike his brother, who is talented. In any case, the protagonist goes to greet his big sister and tells her that she looks very beautiful. However, the young lady was not happy at all because Yang had missed martial arts classes for 15 days. In response, the hero explained that he had been cultivating and in this case, asked his sister not to worry about his performance. Thus, the girl cautiously approached and asked if Yang was at least in the 2nd layer of body strengthening. Unexpectedly, the boy replied that he was already at the peak of the 5th layer of body strengthening. This, of course, made the young lady more irritated than proud, as she couldn't believe his words. So she left and the hero was left wondering why his sister was so irritated. But Jian didn't find the behavior strange, as it would be hard for anyone to believe in such great talent. Later, finally, an elder appeared and began explaining the exam, which would be divided into 2 parts. In the first part, the students would be divided into groups of up to 3 people to defeat spirit beasts and collect herbs. Obviously, in case they felt in danger, they could ask the masters surrounding the mountain for help, but they would be disqualified. Moreover, in 3 days, the group that collected the most would receive extra rewards for any surplus. In 3 days, all students must return to the central courtyard to submit what they had gathered, concluding the exam. After the explanation, the older sister appeared, saying that the rules were great for Yang because he could team up with 2 powerful people. However, the hero recalled that he had already killed several spirit beasts on the Sharp Song Mountain and therefore didn't need anyone else. Thus, the girl left even more irritated than before, and Jian commented that she seemed to care a lot about the boy. However, the protagonist could see through her intentions and understood that she only cared about the reward. Some time passed, and all the students headed to the base of the mountain. At the test site, Jian asked if they really wouldn't look for another member for the team. In response, the hero explained that it would depend on the situation, as if they didn't find someone strong, the member would just hinder the group. So, although it wasn't the original idea, Jian agreed, and suddenly he called Yang's attention because Muxu was there. Unexpectedly, the girl was with a man named Wen Zheming, and by all indications, the 2 were having a lot of fun together. Since he was the first to notice, Jian commented that this guy was the young master of the Zheming Pharmaceutical Company and a student of the White Tiger Pavilion. But despite not being happy about it, the hero preferred to let the girl do whatever she wanted with her life. However, at that moment, the boy noticed the presence of the genius of the outer students, Jian. Then realizing that the boy was in the same group as his brother's failure, he warned that Jian might end up failing the exam. In this case, the boy stated that his choices were none of Wen's business, and in response, the bully said he was just giving a reminder. Then Wen left with Mu in his arms while wishing the hero's group good luck. With that, the gossipers started talking about the boys again, saying they wouldn't pass since only Jian was useful in the group. But these students were only saying this because they still didn't know the true strength of our hero. During the exam, the protagonist made his first victim a huge wild bear with just 1 punch. Then Jian praised his brother for being even faster than himself in the collection process. In this case, Yang reminded him that he had said many times that he would be responsible for his brother's protection. But at that moment, several students appeared running from something that was still not identifiable. Because of this, the boys followed the students until they found a kind of purple storm in the sky. This is a phenomenon between heaven and earth, and so Yang believed that a miracle was about to happen. Without delay, 2 of the strongest martial artists appeared to investigate the situation. They quickly went to the center of that strange phenomenon and soon realized that it wasn't a miracle. They explained that this was a terrestrial vein triggered by a celestial phenomenon. And although it was something that showed that there were many talented people among the students, it was still too dangerous to stay there. In this case, the elder ordered everyone to leave, but our hero didn't follow the others. That's because his technique was capable of understanding everything between heaven and earth, so he thought he could also understand the thunders. Because of this, the hero exposed himself more and more to the phenomenon to use his cultivation technique. Then soon Yang was struck by one of the storm's lightning bolts, which made the two masters very worried. However, that didn't cause any damage to our hero, but rather an advancement in his cultivation. In any case, at first it wasn't possible to see this, and with Yang on the ground, Jian was desperate. Quickly, the boy rushed to help his brother, and soon the elders lamented the boy's bad luck. However, since he was still breathing, one of the masters offered to take him to Elder Qian for medical treatment. Then the other master said that Jian could descend the mountain, but this made the boy ask what would happen with the exam. In response, the elder was understanding and said that they could continue the exam right after Yang woke up. The next day, our hero woke up with a completely exhausted expression. At this moment, he couldn't even tell where he was but remembered the thunder that struck him. In any case, the energy of the thunder slowly began to appear, so Yang tried to cultivate. Fortunately, he realized that this was the celestial thunder Kai, which had been absorbed by the demonic dragon's secret art the night before. Therefore, Yang was very happy, believing that he was now invincible. However, the boy still didn't know where he was, so he opened the doors and began to walk. Before long, he noticed the presence of a very beautiful girl painting something on a scroll. However, he was still confused about the girl's identity, who might actually be an inscription master. It is said that even though it is an auxiliary profession for a celestial Taoist, the status of such a master is very high. The standards of inscription master have varied effects, and some can be placed on weapons and armor. Then, after analyzing a bit, the hero realized that this was the same girl from before on the mountain. And after finishing her painting, the girl greeted Yang, who had just woken up from medical treatment. Getting straight to the point, the hero asked if Lingxi was an inscription master, and although suspicious, she replied yes. At that moment, Bao Qian, the man responsible for Yang's treatment, appeared. And since Yang could feel his presence, the man asked if the boy could sense the fluctuation of others' spiritual power. In response, the hero affirmed that he could, and moreover, Yang analyzed the patterns on the scroll, saying it was a defensive inscription. Khan was surprised once again by the boy's ability to sense, and in this case, he asked if Yang wanted to learn the art of inscriptions. Without wasting time, the protagonist dropped to his knees, already accepting the opportunity to become Qian's disciple. Faced with this proposal, the girl wasn't happy at all and said that Yang was no good. However, Qian kept his word and only warned that if the hero wasn't famous in 5 years, he would be expelled. Nonetheless, the protagonist didn't quite understand what being famous meant to his master. Then Qian explained that it meant being recognized on the continent, but it would be fine if Yang started with the eastern region. The hero, in turn, became desperate because 5 years seemed like very little time to become famous. It was said that the hero had never left Sharpsong City, which is just a province of Celestial Sky, and as if that weren't enough, it's only one of the 108 provinces in the east. In this case, the master asked if there was any problem, and Yang said no, despite being very worried. Then the master informed him that he would be in the city for a long time, so the boy should learn as much as he could. And in any case, he said that Yang didn't need to be so formal in the future, only needing the courage to finish the exams. With the conversation over, Qian asked his daughter to escort the newest disciple to the exit. On the way, the hero commented that he didn't know Lingxi's father was an inscription master, but the girl wasn't interested in talking. Changing the subject, Yang asked about the girl's cultivation level, but again, she didn't want to answer. Finally, the protagonist complimented Lingxi's beauty, and this made the girl's patience finally run out. Back at Sharpsong Mountain, Jian is in the middle of a fight against a spiritual beast. And with the boy's victory, our hero shows up to compliment his brother's swordsmanship. Upon seeing Yang, the boy asks if the protagonist is really okay. And with great confidence, Yang states that a little thunder isn't enough to kill him. With that, Jian is happy about his recovery, but reminds him that they still have some work to do before the first phase ends. 3 days after the start of the exam, the students gather in the same place as before. Then the heir of the pharmaceutical network soon appears to mock Yang's group, who couldn't find a third member. However, our hero had no desire to give any explanations to that boy. In this case, the boy continued to mock them even more, and in addition, asked how many beasts Yang had killed. But at that moment, the elder appeared and immediately ordered all the teams to bring everything they had collected in the mountains. It was said that teams who collected 3 spiritual herbs or hunted more than 3 beasts would move on to the next stage. With that, the heir of the renowned pharmaceutical family ordered his subordinate to hand over what they had hunted. And because the team had collected the herb and hunted 7 spiritual beasts, they advanced to the next stage. A simple compliment from the elder was enough to make the group quite smug. Then our hero yawned and asked his brother to hand over what they had hunted. At that moment, when they realized the size of the loser's haul, all the students were in complete shock. Upon seeing that massive bag of materials, the students began to wonder what was inside. Logically, they concluded that it was fake, and Wen also found the presentation ridiculous. Nevertheless, the bag of materials was there to be presented to the elders. Without wasting time, the person in charge of the exam asked for the bag to be opened so he could see what was inside. Then the moment the bag was opened, there was no escape for the students who had been doubting. That's because inside were dozens or hundreds of spiritual beast parts as well as many herbs. Thus, the elder was surprised and asked his assistants to check everything as quickly as possible. During the check, Wen still couldn't believe what he was seeing in front of him. Without delay, the elder announced that Yang's group had killed 90 spiritual beasts and collected 5 herbs. Upon hearing this, Wen became very anxious and couldn't understand how Jian had carried the group by killing all those beasts alone. Anyway, the elder told everyone who passed the first phase that they now needed to prepare for the second. With the check finished, the hero asked what kind of reward would be given, and Jian said he had no idea. At that moment, the big sister of the group appeared and asked how they managed to kill so many spiritual beasts. In response, the protagonist explained that as a celestial Taoist, his power was immeasurable. However, the girl wasn't convinced, and even though Jian tried to explain the situation, she cut him off. So to avoid concerns, the hero simply said he would be fine. Despite being a bit humble, Jian now recalled that Yang was responsible for killing more than half of the spiritual beasts. However, our hero decided not to give it much importance, as they still had to finish the exam first. Thus, Jian asked his brother to show all his power in the next test, but that was already Yang's exact intention. With the first test over, the elder explained that in the second, parents would be allowed to attend. In this case, Jian asked if Yang believed their parents would come to watch the exam. But our hero still didn't know, so Jian hoped at least their grandfather would show up. In response, Yang said he hadn't thought much about it, but it was already a fact that their grandfather wouldn't appear since he left home long ago. However, Jian was confident that if they became inner students, their grandfather would be happy wherever he was. So Yang agreed because once they passed the exam, they would have access to cultivation techniques and secret arts. Although the hero had a supreme technique, it was just one of many that existed, and the next day, the second test began. In the area for parents, many came to see their children in the admission test. Unexpectedly, our hero's father also came to watch the second phase of the test. This is Zhang Zhengi, who is Yang's father and Jian's adoptive father, so the two quickly went to greet him. However, Zhang wasn't in the mood for conversation and said that if the boys failed, he would no longer be their father. Because of this, both Yang and Jian were shocked by their father's lack of compassion. After greeting their father, Zhang said he had heard that Jian had advanced to the 7th layer and mastered the first phase of the exam. However, the boy had no idea where his father had heard those dubious rumors. Anyway, Zhang shouted, asking why they had offended Xu, because now he wouldn't have a daughter-in-law anymore. And with that, our hero realized that the girl was watching everything from behind him. In response, Muxu's father, named Yu Chan, becomes irritated that Zhenji is using his daughter as a prize. And this whole argument ends up making both of their children feel quite embarrassed. Without delay, the fathers begin mocking the idea of Yang dating Mu, as they believe the boy is nothing but a failure. Despite this, there is a rumor that Yang awakened a martial spirit, but even so, a Taoist who trains for 3 years and doesn't progress is considered trash. However, although he seems tough, the hero's father trusts his son's abilities. That's why he warns that if Yang loses his place in the second test, they'll be in trouble. In Zhang's view, he believes his son cannot still be at the first layer, and he also finds Muxu's behavior strange. With this, the elder announces that the real exam will now begin, which will be divided into 3 parts for the internal students. In this case, Jian becomes a bit worried, but the hero remains confident that they'll keep the first place. Returning to the explanation, the Academy will take into account all the results and reward the top 10. The first place will receive a dragon vein pill, which is highly coveted by martial artists. It is said that such a pill is a masterpiece made by an alchemist master who lives in the royal capital. This is a glorious prize capable of strengthening the body and increasing strength, even allowing one to break through the barrier of spiritual dominance. Additionally, in this year's exam, along with the grand prize for the best, the 2nd and 3rd places will receive a Beast Essence pill. As for the 4th through 10th places, they will be rewarded with 10 body recovery pills. Hearing this speech, the hero is thrilled with the possibility of becoming even stronger. And suddenly, Chen Lingxi appears, causing a great stir and disrupting Yang's thoughts. Besides her, the warrior Guan Minghao was also present, being one of the most powerful among the external students. It is said that although Jian is strong compared to these two, he becomes an inferior warrior. Moreover, to many students they make a beautiful couple, though others believe Guan is still not talented enough. But unexpectedly, the first person the girl decides to talk to is our hero. And of course, all the students' eyes land on Yang, who feels quite pressured. To start the conversation, the protagonist compliments Lingxi's beauty and asks if she missed him. This makes the girl very embarrassed by the hero's shamelessness. Already feeling betrayed, Guan shouts for Yang to stay away from Lingxi. However, our hero saw this as an opportunity to get even closer and provoke the boy, saying he's in love with her. With this, several gossips recall that Guan is obsessed with Lingxi, but has been rejected several times. But to cut off this conflict, the elder announces that the first part of the exam will be a strength test. It is said that students must strike a pillar that will respond with a bright light for every 100 points of strength. Hearing this, Guan feels confident and mocks the hero, but Yang doesn't back down and responds in kind. This leaves Guan very irritated. while Lingxi is quite pleased with Yang's boldness. Without further delay, the martial master responsible for the test begins the strength test. Even though it's the first of the 3 tests in the second phase, the difficulty level is already disqualifying several students who didn't reach the minimum score. As such, many are desperate in line because if they fail, they'll lose the chance to become internal disciples. Then, after many unlucky ones, a warrior finally manages to score 1000 in strength to qualify. In any case, the hero thinks that even if he passes now, he still doesn't know what will come in the other tests. At this moment, it's Saiguping's turn to show his strength on the pillar. After throwing his punch, the boy scores 2200 points, which is no surprise considering his family's reputation. But our hero still went over to Lingxi to mock the boy's performance, saying it should be much better given how much was invested in him. In this case, the girl thinks it's jealousy and tells Yang to try doing better. Then, our hero suggests they make a bet to see who's right. Taking the lead in the bet, the girl says that if Yang loses, he'll have to run naked through the city. This makes the hero quite apprehensive despite his confidence in his abilities. In any case, he thinks that if he wins, he might gain an unparalleled opportunity. That's because Lingxi was willing to offer anything the hero wanted if he could win the bet. So, without wasting any time, the protagonist asks for a kiss from the girl as his reward. Next in line for the strength test, Guan used his plumed bird punch, and unexpectedly, he reached 31 meters, which resulted in a total of 3100 points. Seeing this, the warrior boasted about his strength, and very cleverly, the hero tried to convince Lingxi that Guan was mocking her. But without further delay, it was time for the candidate Jian Wufi to demonstrate his power at the pillar. In this case, the boy asked if Yang wanted him to show all his strength, to which our hero replied affirmatively. With that, Jian approached the pillar and began to exude his powerful aura for everyone to see. In this way, the students realized that the boy was at the peak of the 6th layer and were very impressed. Then, after surprising everyone with his aura, Jian astonished them with his strike on the pillar. At first, the warriors couldn't believe what they were seeing and asked if there was something wrong with the meter. However, there was nothing wrong with it, and the boy's true strength was in the range of 4100 points. Obviously, the students were confused by Jian being stronger than Guan, and they concluded that Guan had suppressed his power. Anyway, the boy's father was now very proud of his performance. However, Muxu's father didn't like this attitude as Zhang had nothing to do with his son's progress. Then suddenly, our hero began to laugh loudly and immediately shouted that Jian had learned everything from him. However, this sounded strange, especially to Lingxi, who thought Yang hadn't done anything. In this case, the boy said that Lingxi might not know, but everything he had learned was thanks to his older brother. In any case, 2 of the top 3 had already taken the strength test, and the only one left was Qian Lingxi. Thus, our hero reminded everyone that it was the girl's turn, and without wasting time, she began to release her powers. With an extremely powerful ice aura, Lingxi's powers started to freeze the ground around her. And upon reaching the pillar, the girl merely touched her fist to the pillar without much effort. This caused the meter to rise to 29 meters, giving her a total of 2900 points. In this case, the students didn't understand how the girl could be weaker than Guan, and soon they believed something must be wrong. However, the hero knew that Lingxi wasn't the type to rely on strength, and when she advanced to the 6th layer, she would surpass Guan. Finally, it was the protagonist's turn to take the test, and the girl didn't understand how Yang remained so confident. In this case, she speculated that all this effort was to get a kiss from her, but she quickly came to her senses, realizing that Yang wasn't qualified for that. Before taking the test, the hero began to stretch, which became a source of mockery among the candidates. However, little by little, the protagonist's aura started to be released, and as his power emerged, the students became more and more surprised. One, on the other hand, couldn't understand what was happening, as Yang was only supposed to be at the 1st layer. At this, the person who became the most irritated was Lingxi for being deceived. Guan, meanwhile, was more surprised by our hero's strength, but he remained confident that Yang wasn't a match for him. He believed that Yang must have used some elixir, and that, because of this, his strength wouldn't be much. But at that moment, the protagonist used his primordial dragon punch, and with the punch, a cloud of dust rose. With that, the evaluator measured the power, and with 35 meters on the pillar, a total of 3,500 points was marked. Seeing this, Muxu was very surprised, and when, although not liking the hero, understood that he wasn't a match for him. Then, remembering the bet, the hero called Lingxi to look at the result, but unexpectedly, the girl had disappeared. In this case, he wasn't too worried, knowing that sooner or later he would find her to claim his reward. And outside the event, Lingxi was very irritated for being deceived and therefore didn't want to fulfill the agreement. After Yang's strength assessment, the boy's older sister is surprised by his rapid evolution. 15 days ago, he was at the 1st level, but now he's already at the peak of the 5th, making him an extraordinary prodigy. With that, the first part of the exam ends, and for those who pass, they can participate in the second part at the beginning of the next day. Then the boys go home and Jian asks his brother what he thinks will happen in the next test. Although he's not sure, our hero guesses that it will be an individual battle test, and this will be good for venting some anger. In any case, Jian asks if their grandfather will come to watch the second part of the exam, and Yang, unfortunately, believes so. Meanwhile, Guan's father, named Guan Guanzi, greets his older brother Yuan and praises his cultivation. This Yuan is the master of the White Tiger Pavilion, one of the 4 inner pavilions in the city's martial arts academy. In response, the master says time flies and nostalgically remembers when the two of them started practicing together as internal students. With that, Guanzi laughs and says that Minghao trusts his brother a lot to take care of him at the academy. Then, Yuan informs that right after the exam, Minghao will be admitted to his pavilion, and he will personally accept him as his disciple. In this case, Guanzi asks Guan Minghao to greet his new master. And soon the boy shows the proper respect to his mentor, but Yuan is not very pleased with this excessive formality. In any case, Guanzi mentions that he heard the old man will be responsible for the third part of the test. And the same confirms it, but also tells Guan Minghao not to worry, as he will pass without difficulties. And then the Dragon Vein pill can be handed over to the boy. The next day, the father of our heroes happily greets them for doing well in the previous day's test. That said, Zhang mentions that their grandfather will return home a few days after the exam, and Jian is very happy about it, unlike our hero, who is indifferent. Then their father informs them that the old man also asked to say that for now, it would not be wise to use the trump card. Back at the test, the elder announces that this time the evaluation will be about the warrior's unshakable heart. With that, the students are left confused, not understanding what kind of mental test this is, and the master soon begins to demonstrate. With a huge ball of energy, he throws it upwards, generating a massive wall. Then the elder explains that all students will enter this array and must pass through 5 levels to be qualified. In any case, some warnings are given, but our hero enters before everyone else, ending up in a dense forest. As his first act in the test, he tries to orient himself but soon realizes that several wild animals are chasing him. In this case, the hero already knows it's all an illusion, so he disperses the phase and completes the first level. With that, both the second and third levels are also completed with great ease. Because of this, our hero believes that this test is going to be easier than expected. However, when he opens the door, Yang realizes that this test is different from all the others. That's because it's using his desire for women instead of physical threats. Soon after entering the exam, many students are already eliminated in the first levels. But the master of the Blue Dragon Pavilion can see our hero's performance and praises Bao Wang for the excellent disciple he has. In response, the protagonist's master explains that his disciple is still young, and it's too early to judge his future. That's because the world is only truly known by those with pure martial talent and an unshakable heart. It is said that if one doesn't have an unshakable heart, even with good cultivation, one day they will make a mistake that will lead to their death. In this case, the Blue Dragon Pavilion master understands the value of the Sword Saint's words, but he notices that both Lingxi and Jian have surpassed Yang in the test, while he remains stuck at the 4th level. The truth is that this test was quite difficult for our hero, because he is quite a pervert, and even trying to resist the advances of those illusions, the image of the young lady was very real. With that, the girl offers to perform dual cultivation with our hero, and little by little, Yang begins to fall into this trap. However, at the most critical moment, the hero manages to sense the danger and remember that what's in front of him is just an illusion. For this reason, he places his hand on the girl's face and dispels the technique, saving her fate. With that, the protagonist sits on the bed to recover, but soon Lingxi appears to give the promised kiss as a reward from the first phase. In this case, our hero once again falls into the illusion's tricks and becomes infatuated with her. Then from afar, the girl's father looks with disapproval at his disciple's actions, and the master of the Azure Dragon Pavilion tries to ease the situation, saying that given Yang's age, it's natural to have sexual desires. But once again, before he could lose his ranking in the test, the boy returns to his senses. Therefore, he stops Lingxi, which makes the illusion ask if our hero doesn't like her. He, in turn, no longer falls for these tricks and uses the calm mind technique to dispel the illusion. With that, the 4th stage is finally completed, and in parallel, Guan enters the same stage. However, the moment he sees those women, the boy pulls out an artifact and makes them disappear. Therefore, the 4th stage is completed in just a few seconds, and the boy is confident that he will take first place. Back to our hero's perspective, he is now in the 5th phase, which involves a bridge with skeletons and spirits. However, our hero quickly dispels this, as the only thing that can mess with his mind are the girls. And so the 5th level is completed almost as soon as Yang entered. Returning to the Master's Hall, the Azure Dragon says that Jian is also a good boy and praises his mind, which is probably the best. However, Qian's father says this is an inferior refined spirit arrangement, so only an intermediary can tell if someone is good or not. In this case, the master laughs and agrees, knowing that an arrangement of this level is indeed terrifying for normal students. Our hero, on the other hand, after arriving, sits down to begin understanding how he can get out of there. Seeing this, his master understands that, although the hero lacks knowledge about the patterns, he is trying to learn, which is what matters. Thus, this will be a great opportunity for a boy with a great spirit like him to develop. After some time, the first rank finally begins to emerge from the test. This is Guan Minghao, and along with him, Jian takes second place and Lingxi takes third. After that, many others start to leave the test, and this makes Jian begin to worry about his brother. With that, Yang appears in last place, and although he didn't finish in a good position, at least he passed. Faced with this, Jian asks if his brother is sick and why it took him so long. But our hero simply replies that the two of them are going to become very rich. And leaving the boy confused, the protagonist says he will explain at another time. With that, the elder orders everyone to be silent, and for those who pass the second part of the test, he will guide them to the third phase. In addition to being the third, this is the largest of all to be held in a massive tower. This is the Tower of the Four Spirits, which is a training center, so the candidate must pass through all the challenges on the floors to be admitted. Yuan explains that a student who passes the first 3 floors will already be qualified, but if they wish to compete for the best, they can climb as high as they want. In this case, Guan is determined to take first place, and soon the master declares the start of the test. With that, our hero enters the test and is immediately faced with an armed assassin. The assassin is ready to kill the protagonist, but Yang sees no danger in this warrior. Thus, he eliminates the martial artist with just one punch. Next is the turn of a black wolf at the peak of the third layer to fight. However, the protagonist also finishes this wolf with another simple punch. Outside, the instructors are wondering if anyone has already passed to the third floor. And in a general discussion, they conclude that Guan is the only one capable of having already achieved this feat. Yuan, meanwhile, says that at this moment, most students are struggling on the first floor, unlike Guan, who has great power. The boy, however, was also struggling in his fights, but because he came from a wealthy family, he had many resources. Therefore, even after being attacked, the golden scale armor given to him by his father continued to save his life. However, outside, another person was seen ascending to the third floor. Then the spectators begin to speculate that this person could be Jian or Lingxi, as only they can compete with Guan. However, on the third floor of the Four Spirits Tower was our hero. Even while fighting against puppets, his movements are fast enough to make Yang anxious. Besides being two, their cooperation is very good, and to make it harder, they are at the peak of the fourth layer. In any case, our hero's speed is greater than theirs, and that is what's saving him. He knows that, in a battle of speed, he will not lose to these puppets. So Yang positions himself in the best possible spot and delivers one of his strongest blows. By launching the 2 living armors far away, the third floor is successfully completed. Our hero didn't think he would become so strong, the primordial demonic dragon's inheritance, but now he had managed to reach the 4th test. On the 4th floor, the challenge now is 2 wild bears that are in the 5th layer. Outside, the spectators are surprised that someone managed to get this far. Obviously, they believe that Guan is responsible for this, but Yang's older sister bets on the hero. Quickly, the students who didn't pass the first floor are being eliminated, and those who haven't left yet continue in the competition. Unfortunately, many candidates for internal students were eliminated, and the number remaining is already lower than last year's. In this case, one of the masters remembers that the rules are also different, so even with fewer youths, their talent will make up for it. Thus, Yuan hopes they keep climbing, as this serves as a learning experience, and to him, a student who stops when qualified is nothing but useless. An hour later, there are still 5 people competing for first place. Steigeping is the first to leave. Surprisingly, he cannot pass the 3rd floor. In this case, only 4 people remain in the competition, those being Guan along with Jian and Lingxi. However, there was one more person inside, and that person was our hero, who had not yet been eliminated. Upon realizing this, Muxu begins to feel anxious because she didn't know the hero was someone so powerful. At that moment, the second person to leave is Lingxi, who appears without even a single scratch. Back in the test, our hero is still on the 4th floor, fighting the 2 wild bears. However, fighting only with his fists was getting very difficult, so the boy decided to take things more seriously. He then attacked with his elemental power, causing one of the bears to be burned alive. With that, the hero thinks that the true solar flame is indeed very strong and will be very helpful in the future. Because of this, the remaining bear trembles with fear, but Yang doesn't intend to spare its life. Meanwhile, Guan is struggling in his fight against the bears on the 4th floor challenge. Nevertheless, he is determined not to give up and to claim first place. Shortly after, 2 people enter the 5th floor, and those outside are left speechless. A minute later, the master of the Black Tortoise Pavilion, QG, is surprised by the student's performance. Then Yuan says that Guan is indeed impressive for managing to enter the 5th floor. However, Q is not as certain as Yuan that the student who entered is Guan. In this case, the two decide to make a bet to see who is really right, and Yuan says that if he wins, he will want Fuji's student for himself. In response, the other master says he will want the blood-devouring sword as the reward, and so the bet is made. But at that moment, another person enters the 5th floor, leaving Yuan very confused. Meanwhile, inside the 4th floor, Guan continues his fight against the wild bears. However, he is taking the worst of it, but still believes he is the first to get this far. Therefore, he accepts his defeat without much complaint, and Yuan quickly sends someone to fetch the boy, who is severely injured. With that, the elder goes to his aid, and all the spectators are left not understanding what is happening. This is because if Guan was there, it means that the two on the 5th floor are Yang Chen and Jian Wufi. Thus, Chujai won the bet, and the blood-devouring sword now belongs to him. Despite being very irritated by his protege's performance, the old man honors the bet. The protagonist's older sister, on the other hand, is quite surprised by his strength. In his fight, the hero realizes that the Earth Fury Bear on the 5th floor is very powerful. But since he is still faster than him, his solar flame might be able to do something. Meanwhile, Jian is also fighting, but with a bit more difficulty than Yang. Then 15 minutes later, both finally emerge victorious from the test. Seeing this, Chujai is quite pleased with the children's performance, as they didn't even get hurt. In this case, one of the spectators believes that from today on, no one will dare to call Yang useless anymore. Logically, they think the hero was hiding his talent. And during his triumphant exit, Muxui tries to talk to the boy, but he ignores her. With that, the exam for the inner disciple is concluded, and this time 198 students passed. The ranking will be announced later, and Jian believes that Yang must have taken first place this time. However, Jian had also reached the 5th floor, so both had a chance of taking first place. After some time, Yuan states that he had a discussion with the examiners, and they concluded that Guan was the best. And in second place was Jian, who is just slightly above the 3rd place, which is Lingxi. In this case, our hero becomes very angry with this unfair ranking, and Yuan even more so, for a mere boy was questioning the examiner's decision. In response, Yang asks if the examiners are blind because based on the results among the three, the best was Jian. At this point in the discussion, a powerful rivalry is created between Yuan and our hero. Already very upset, the hero reminds everyone that Jian was first in 2 of the 3 tests, and Guan was far below that. Seeing this, Yuan becomes furious once again at a mere student candidate questioning the rules. But the hero doesn't back down, and with a loud shout, he questions how much Yuan was paid to place Guan in first place. This boldness leaves the spectators shocked and the boy's father outraged by the injustice. Thus, Yuan can no longer tolerate these questions about his decisions. Therefore, he begins to release part of his energy to intimidate our hero. With that, through his verdict, the master cancels Yang's test scores and expels him from the martial arts academy. In this case, Jian steps forward and questions why the master is canceling his brother's scores. Then some female candidates fall in love with the rebellious behavior of the two, and the boy's father becomes even more indignant. Thus, Yuan also decides to strip Jian of his 2nd place, causing a rather negative commotion. In any case, the hero knows they don't have enough strength to defeat the master, so he asks Jian to calm down. Returning to the main topic, the elder says that he removed Jian's 2nd place, but he can still become an inner student. In any case, Lingxi will be 2nd and Segaping 3rd, and if anyone has any objections, they will be expelled from the academy. Fuji, in turn, decides not to comment, and the candidates discuss that the boys should have endured and ignored the injustice to become a student. Without delay, the hero's older sister appeared and quickly asked what Yang was thinking. Seeing this, Yang simply complimented the girl's beauty, which made her very irritated. Then our hero explained that he didn't want to pass such an unfair test, and caring deeply for her battle brother, the girl became even more concerned. Anyway, she asked how Yang managed to evolve so quickly to the 5th layer. And the protagonist responded that he managed to evolve during the time he spent looking at her body sketchbook. Thus, the young lady became extremely enraged, and suddenly, a warrior appeared. This was the great General Lai Huaishan, the young lady's father, who had no idea why he was there. In this case, Lai explained that he had come to meet the youths with great potential. And even though Yang had been expelled from the martial arts academy, he said the boy had a spot in the Blue Tiger Army. Seeing this, the hero thanked him but explained that before making a decision, he needed to talk with his family. With that, Lai reiterated that the doors to the Blue Tiger Army would always be open for Yang. And with no further matters to discuss, the general left, jokingly commenting that the hero would make a good son-in-law in the future. After the conversation, Jian told Yang that he would join his brother in the Blue Tiger Army. But our hero refused, knowing that an inner student had better means to cultivate. That said, Yang will embark on his journey alone, and when asked where he's going, the protagonist says he's going to meet someone who promised him something. Thus, Jian believes his brother is going after women once again. However, Yang explains that he's going after Lingxi because despite everything, he still has a master. But Jian had never been informed of this, so he was quite confused. At Shrine Ba Wang's residence, our hero arrives during the night but is approached by someone. This is Di Kang, one of the masters of the White Tiger Pavilion, and he reminds Yang that he was expelled from the academy and cannot enter there. In this case, the protagonist explains that he's only entering his master's residence. Inevitably, this surprises Di Kang, although it's not to be admired considering the progress the boy has made in his cultivation. Thus, the elder understands that he must inform the pavilion master as soon as possible. Inside the master's residence, he is cultivating with a very powerful aura. Noticing the presence of his disciple, the master stops cultivating and welcomes the hero. Yang, on the other hand, continues thinking about how incredible his tutor is, and to break the ice, Bagwon asks if the disciple wants to learn. Of course, he doesn't refuse, but the master warns that it's still too early for that because the boy needs to become stronger. Anyway, he asks how the hero's exam went as he noticed that his divine consciousness was very strong. Regarding this, Yang explains everything, and after hearing the story, the master admires Yuan's courage. Then the boy adds that both he and his brother are much stronger than Guan, who came in first place. For this reason, Bagwon says it's a disgrace to the martial arts academy. In this case, the hero asks if there's a way to expel Yuan from the academy. However, Bagwon explains that he's just Yang's master and isn't part of the academy. Moreover, he finds it cowardly to ask the master to solve the disciple's problems. Nevertheless, since Yang is still his pupil, the master says Yuan belittled him, and thus the hero must teach him a good lesson one day. Hearing this, the protagonist is startled by his master's sinister thought, but he still asks what he should do. Then Bagwon explains that the hero should find an opportunity to show his strength to everyone. With that said, the boy asks if he can stay there for a while to practice martial arts. However, Lingxi soon appears and says her father cannot let this boy stay. In response, the master explains that Yang is his disciple, and besides, the courtyard tasks need to be done by someone. Thus, the protagonist asks when he'll begin learning about pattern engraving, and the master responds that it's still too early for that because the boy must first read all the jade scrolls in the study room. In this case, our hero offers to read everything during the night, but when he gets there, he realizes it will be much harder than expected. Even though it's a task that will take a long time to complete, our hero begins studying. However, during his study, he hears Lingxi commenting with the master about how delicious the deer soup is. So the boy heads to the kitchen to check it out, and upon arriving, immediately asks if Lingxi brought him his soup. In response, the girl denies it and even shows irritation at Yang's shamelessness in coming to live there. With that, the hero reminds her that the master allowed him to stay and cultivate there. But in any case, the boy says it's about time for Lingxi to uphold her honor and fulfill the bet. And that was enough for the girl to leave the soup with Yang and go away. Upon seeing this, our hero doesn't understand why she's so embarrassed about a simple kiss. But now the smell of the food was more appealing than any other thought. So the boy decided to taste the soup, and after the first sip, he concluded that it was delicious. Because of that, our hero ate everything, and the moment he finished, he was thrown into a room. Once there, Yang was told that until he finished reading everything and engraved his first pattern, he wouldn't be able to leave. Thus, the protagonist realizes that his master overheard his conversation with Lingxi. Then the boy sits down to return to his studies, and 15 days later, everything had changed completely. That's because our hero studied so much that he was already able to perform a flame-type pattern. With that, Bagwon congratulates his disciple for managing to engrave the first pattern in just 15 days. And alongside him is Lingxi, who envies Yang's talent as it took her an entire month to complete hers. Without delay, the master says it's time to go to the study hall to learn the gravity pattern. And before leaving, the hero boasted to Lingxi, who said the boy just got lucky. In any case, Yang says it's time for her to fulfill what she bet. But the girl refuses again and says she will only fulfill it when the hero learns the gravity pattern. In this case, the protagonist accepts the condition, as he knows it's only a matter of time before he succeeds. Then after another 15 days, the protagonist manages to complete the gravity pattern. He leaves the room very happy to inform his master, but he can only see Lingxi in the snow. Seeing this, he approaches her and says that this situation between the two of them makes it seem like they're growing old together. And for ruining the moment, the girl stomps on the hero's foot hard. From a distance, the master observes everything and laughs a lot at the two youngsters having arguments so early in the morning. However, our hero says that the two are actually getting along very well. Thus, Bagwon thinks he will have to teach Yang a lesson because he's becoming too bold. And suddenly, a golden eagle appears in the sky of the Chan residence. The master, for his part, interprets this as a warning that the martial arts academy is in trouble. Promptly, our hero asks what that huge bird in the sky is. And the master responds that it's the Golden Phoenix, and on it are people from the Brilliant Whale Martial Arts Academy. With that said, the protagonist asks what they came here for. And Bagwon explains that the two cities are close and both belong to the Heavenly Sky province, so they face off every 3 years. Because of this, the masters place bets, and the students face off in a grand challenge. Bagwon, in turn, has heard that this time the Brilliant Whale Academy has talented students. In this case, Lingxi is ordered to investigate with Yang, and quickly, the visitors declare their presence. With that, Guan also asks his master about the Golden Phoenix in the sky. And Yuan explains that it's from the Brilliant Whale Academy, so Guan must inform the other students. In the outer courtyard, the golden bird lands and our hero manages to meet his brother. In this case, Yang asks what the situation is and Jian says he doesn't know either despite being ordered to come there. Without delay, the Academy's master appears alongside the two elders from before. Without hesitation, the master greets the martial artist from Brilliant Whale with a fake smile. And as he descends from the bird, the foreign martial artist says that no formalities are necessary, as to him, the students here are weak. In this case, they decide to start the same competition between the academies now. And the rules will be the same as last time, with 5 students from each side fighting one-on-one. Yuan, in turn, understands that the Brilliant Whale Academy is quite aggressive and suggests changing the rules. However, the master believes they have good disciples this year, which makes him confident. Thus, he says they will continue the competition in the same way as last year. Then, without delay, the foreigner orders his disciples to descend from the phoenix. Seeing this, our hero comments that there are some geniuses among the martial artists from Brilliant Whale. In this case, Lingxi asks how the protagonist knows this, and he replies that he can just sense it. In any case, the foreign master warns that his disciples should remain on alert and not let their guard down. But this attitude is interpreted as arrogance by the warriors of Cutting Song. In any case, the competition between academies happens every 3 years, and now the new edition is about to begin. Thus, the first challenger is Chu Naming, who is already in the 5th layer of the body-strengthening domain. And on the allied side, Saitiping is sent to represent the Cutting Song Academy. With that, the House Warrior introduces himself, saying that he is also in the 5th layer. And soon Shu makes his first move, surprising everyone as he is a celestial Taoist of the fire attribute. Seeing this, the hero understands that despite looking like a normal boy, he is still a celestial fire-type Taoist. With that, Kyujai realizes that the arrogance of the foreigners wasn't unfounded, and without wasting time, Shu makes his first attack, sending Situ flying. Then the boy tries to land another blow, but Situ activates his diamond body ability. However, even using his power, he still loses the punch exchange again. This greatly worries Q, as the boy was overpowered even after using a technique that strengthens the body. In this case, Chu becomes even more arrogant and prepares to deliver the final blow. But fortunately, the master intervenes and tells the boy not to go too far in a friendly competition. Thus, Chu refrains from attacking, and the spectators are enraged by the boy's arrogance. Besides the spectators, our hero also couldn't stand this behavior. However, Lingxi found it hypocritical, as Yang was even more arrogant than the warrior. In this case, the protagonist takes the comment as a compliment and thanks her for the consideration. He then says he's only arrogant in front of outsiders, but with Lingxi, he's nothing more than an immobile puppet. Hearing this, the girl challenges them to put that to the test in a sword training session later. And of course, the hero quickly retracts his words. The next competitor to challenge Chu is the top-ranked student in the internal exam. With that, the protagonist mocks Guan, and to ease the tension, he changes the subject. Without delay, the warrior starts using his powers and charges at his opponent. However, Chu easily dodges, and Lingxi is impressed by the boy's speed. Then Guan tries to attack again, but the foreigner keeps dodging. To surprise him, Chu creates a clone behind him, but when he hits it, he realizes he struck something unusual. It was Guan's golden scale armor, and wearing something like that in a competition, the Brilliant Whale Academy master mocks him relentlessly. Seeing this, Yuan explains to the master that he didn't know Guan was wearing it. Unable to bear the embarrassment any longer, the master orders Guan to step down from the arena. With the fight over, Chu had even more reason to be arrogant, and seeing the strength of the first-place fighter, he begins to mock the strength of the other contestants. The citizens comment that the disciples of Brilliant Whale Academy are very talented. And with Guan's defeat, the arrogant boy continues to boast about his victory over the Sharp Song Academy. In this case, Yuan can't tolerate this attitude and asserts that Jian Wufi is still there to represent them in the competition. However, Jian has no intention of helping, even with Yuan shouting orders at him. Jian uses the excuse that he was a bit careless during cultivation and injured his meridians. This gives him a reason not to fight, leaving all the masters distressed. With that, the students remember that Yuan expelled Jian's brother, and if he doesn't fight, the old man will bear all the shame. Thus, the elder plays his last card and sends Qi and Lingxi up to the arena. Seeing this, the hero shouts that if she can't win, she just needs to call for him, and he'll help. Facing Lingxi, the boy from the Golden Whale School compliments the competitor's beauty. Without delay, the girl states her name and announces that she's in the 5th layer of body strengthening. But Chu is more interested in her beauty, and so he offers to forfeit the challenge if she spends the night with him. This enrages our hero, as the boy is trying to steal his woman, and Lingxi even more for being hit on, so she wastes no time and activates an ice inscription. This causes the Golden Whale Master to feel a bit uneasy about the boy dealing with an inscription master. However, Chu steps on the engraving and begins mocking the power of the array. But that was just a symbol, and at that moment, the girl activated the power of the inscription. Thus, an extreme cold begins to course through the boy's body, and inevitably, he is frozen entirely. With that, the second fight ends in victory for Sharp Song Academy. Both our hero and the students are captivated by her performance. In this case, Jian reminds the protagonist of what he said about her being just a pastime. Quickly, the hero covers his brother's mouth, saying she mustn't know about that. This was precisely why people didn't like Yang, and swiftly, some aides removed Chu from the arena. At that moment, a new competitor named Chu Pan from the opposing martial arts academy appeared. Lingxi tried to use the same move as before, but this time the boy was already prepared. So she attempted to switch to another inscription, but Pan didn't give her time to prepare and charged at her for a physical confrontation. Seeing this, the master of the Cutting Song School shouted, saying that Lingxi had already lost, and at the last moment, Pan stopped his attack. Faced with this, since it's rare to see a master of inscriptions, the boy invited Lingxi to go with him. However, the girl warned that if he hadn't stopped his strike, he would have died as well. Then looking around, Pan noticed the powerful arrangement that was right under his foot. Anyway, Lingxi left and told the boy not to be so arrogant. And after leaving the arena, the girl went to the protagonist to say that the warrior had mistreated her. Returning to the conversation among the masters, they commented that there was only one spot left, and they would have to send someone below the 5th layer. Thus, the master realized they were in trouble. But at that moment, Yang appeared and asked to fight. However, old Yang questioned what the hero was doing, reminding him that he had been expelled from the academy. Nevertheless, since the boy's strength wasn't bad, the master allowed Yang to handle the academy's problems. So even though it went against Yuan's opinion, our hero stepped into the arena. And as he entered, he announced that he would crush Pan for what he made his beloved go through. The students were not very happy that Yang was going to fight, but since he was in the 5th layer, the boy was now the school's only hope. Thus, the students who had been doubtful now raised their hands to cheer for our hero. Pan in turn asked if Yang had a death wish, but the hero didn't understand why his opponent was saying that, as he had only shouted. That said, the protagonist replied that he could shout louder than the warrior and began to call him an idiot. Then, even after insulting him multiple times, Yang demonstrated that he was still alive. For this reason, Pan couldn't take being provoked by the boy anymore and charged at him with his sword. Quickly, he used his diagonal slash technique, and Yang prepared his fire aura to defend himself. Then, when Pan slashed at the protagonist, he disappeared, leaving the allied students in total despair. However, the disappearance was part of our hero's permeability skill, and soon he reappeared behind his opponent. With that, the protagonist used his primordial dragon punch and sent Pan flying, disarming him. And without delay, Yang jumped on top of the boy and began punching his face for everything he had made Lingxi go through. Seeing this, the leader of the Brilliant Whale School ordered our hero to stop. However, Yang said that his opponent hadn't yet admitted defeat, so the fight had to continue. But the reason Pan hadn't admitted defeat was because our hero was covering his mouth. Besides, at that moment, the warrior had already been beaten so much that he couldn't speak anymore. In response, our hero apologized, saying he hadn't noticed Pan's situation, and Lingxi found the whole thing very amusing. However, the leader of the Brilliant Whale School didn't accept this and thought that Yang was letting things get out of control. Without delay, all the students who had been mocking the protagonist now started cheering for him. Then, feeling very confident in his abilities, the hero called for the next combatant to appear. In this case, the ace up the sleeve of the Brilliant Whale Elder, Zhang Hong, was sent to the ring. And upon entering the arena, the boy introduced himself as a martial artist in the 6th layer of the body-strengthening domain. Seeing this, Yang acknowledged that the rival academy was strong, but he didn't despair. The elder of the opposing school, however, became even more irritated by the boy's arrogance. And, inevitably, this attitude made a girl fall in love with our hero. Anyway, Zhang Hong praised Yang's skills for defeating Pan, but said that this time he wouldn't be able to win. Thus, the boy activated a skill that left the students surprised, realizing that Hong was a master of inscriptions. Moreover, Lingxi was even more surprised when she noticed that this was a martial soul arrangement. Since Jian didn't know what this was, she explained that it's a forbidden arrangement that consumes the master's soul in exchange for power. Hearing this, Jian couldn't accept what he heard and asked if Yang would be okay. However, the arrangement was already set, and our hero found this technique very interesting. Without delay, our hero began preparing something to turn the situation in his favor. Soon, Hong realized that his opponent was probably also a master of inscriptions, as he was trying to undo the arrangement. However, he was confident that no one would break his technique. That's because within it, there were numerous weapons, and although his opponent could dodge some, it would be impossible to dodge them all. Yang, for his part, saw this as a challenge, but Hong continued his attack, boasting with pride. Unexpectedly, the protagonist managed to catch the weapons that had been thrown and throw them back. Then he explained that the flaws in the method used to create the arrangement weren't hard to find. And within seconds of the fight, the inscription was broken, sending Hong into despair. With the inscription broken, it was now time for our protagonist to counter with what he had learned from his master. And before receiving the blow, Hong realized in the worst way that Yang was indeed a master of inscriptions. By placing the gravity pattern and making some adjustments, the protagonist developed a gravitational arrangement. With that, his opponent realized he could no longer move, and so Yang wasted no time and moved into attack. With just one punch, the boy sent his enemy flying to the feet of the rival academy's master. Because of this, he understands the potential of the hero and his mistake in underestimating Sharp Song Academy. Guan, in turn, is the most surprised as he truly didn't believe in Yang's strength. Besides him, the traitor of our hero and her new companion shared the same sentiment. Apart from them, all the students were cheering for the protagonist like never before. With his morale at its highest peak, the hero declares that if Brilliant Whale Academy doesn't have someone better, they should give up. Hearing this, the master thinks that, considering Yang's track record, the other fighters won't be able to win either. Thus, the elder asks if Yang is the only one in the academy who knows how to fight, and the hero responds that he's not the only one, but he's enough for this duel. In this case, the master says that in a competition, everyone must fight, not just one boy. However, the old master of Sharp Song Academy counters, saying that this is a rule the elder just made up. In any case, the elder insists that he's only speaking the truth. Unexpectedly, the protagonist decides to accept the enemy's terms. This, of course, leaves the old man very irritated by such important decisions being made without his consent. Without delay, our hero calls his brother to the ring, saying he's the next to fight. With that, Jian now accepts the challenge and swaps places with the protagonist to represent the academy. And right after stepping up, the boy asks the two remaining warriors to step up together. This, of course, is interpreted as even greater arrogance than the previous fighter. Thus, the elder orders the two students from his academy to step into the arena to put an end to this braggart. However, Hong warns that sending the two younger brothers won't end well for their side. But the elder is too angry to listen to any advice and reaffirms his order, so the two warriors step into the arena to challenge Sharp Song Academy's representative. And the moment they charge for the attack, Jian, with a single strike, neutralizes both, breaking their swords. This leaves the academy's master utterly shocked. From a distance, Yang shouts that next time, Brilliant Whale Academy should make sure to bring stronger students. Then, after being completely humiliated, the master gathers his students and leaves on the Golden Phoenix. This marks the victory of Sharp Song Academy in this martial arts event. With that, a festive atmosphere begins and the school's master appears to comment on the mistake he made. He explained that since Yang had helped so much, he decided to abolish the expulsion decision and invite him to his pavilion. However, the hero questions whether he doesn't even have a statement of guilt regarding that unfair expulsion. Faced with this, the master is at a loss for words but quickly recovers by saying that the exam's in the past. Additionally, he says that our hero will receive adequate compensation, but Yang continues to question him about it. Thus, the old man tells the protagonist to stop being arrogant, as even though he's a disciple of the Sword Saint, he's still just an external student. With that, Yang realizes there's no point in talking and replies that he has learned his lesson. In the end, the boy was unjustly expelled from the academy for telling the truth, and if it happened once, it's likely to happen again. Furthermore, many masters want him to study at their academies, so there's no reason to stay. Thus, Yang turns his back on Sharp Song Academy, saying he's leaving. This leaves the master feeling very embarrassed by the boy's stubbornness. In any case, that old man was the one responsible for causing this whole problem. Then, noticing the disapproving looks, he tries to order the boys by force to accept the invitation. However, the protagonist simply reaffirms what he said about the elder being the one in the wrong. In this case, the old man gives up trying to argue and prepares to teach the boys a lesson. He says that they asked for this, and Lynx tries to stop the master of the White Tiger Pavilion. Faced with this, the elder tells the girl to step aside from those two, saying they disrespected the academy. However, the girl doesn't back down and warns that the old man will regret this decision. In response, the elder finds it nonsense, saying there are no rules preventing a master from teaching a student a lesson. But what he didn't expect was that the Sword Saint himself would appear to settle the matters concerning his daughter. At the moment of his arrival, the other masters quickly greeted him with great respect. The old man in turn tried to explain his side of the story, but he was subdued with just one blow. With that, the saint ordered the elder to shut up and get out of his sight, which made Yang admire him even more. Faced with this, the master said he understood his colleagues' anger, but explained that they were simply resolving a misunderstanding. In this case, Bao Wang asked if the academy would compensate his disciple for the mistake they made. Then, in a rather uncomfortable state, the master said they could discuss it. Thus, Bao Wang stated that Yang didn't actually need this academy to become stronger, and to apologize, the master said he would inform the director of everything that happened. That was enough to make the saint leave along with the three warriors. And as they left, the master could only think about the power Bagwan demonstrated even while sealed and injured. Finally, he called Yuan to get up from his humiliating position and speak to the director. Later, at his master's house, our hero entered the Jade Room and observed Bagwan during his cultivation. Yang, for his part, was there to report that he had already learned all the basics of martial weapons alongside his brother. In this case, the master showed interest and asked if the boy now wanted to learn martial arts. Obviously, our hero responded with bright eyes, saying yes. However, the saint warned that he would not teach any martial skills because the boy was not yet ready. So Gang's expression completely changed, complaining about his master's personality. And of course, he was disciplined with a hit on the head for this rebellious behavior. To explain, the master said that Yang's goal should be to condense his body and consolidate his foundation before learning martial skills. Originally, Bao Wang had planned to teach him his secret executive art, but he noticed that the hero already had his own. Anyway, the saint explained that the most important thing for a celestial Taoist was to practice and master the skills they already possessed. And seeing this, the protagonist accepted his master's advice and said he would remember it. Naturally, the night passed, and the day came along with the presence of a mysterious man at the gate. Unexpectedly, he brought a gift for the protagonist, something quite precious. The gift came from the Martial Arts Academy as compensation and consisted of a dragon vein pill along with other cultivation materials. With that, our hero was filled with greed and was ready to use everything immediately. But fortunately, the master stopped him, saying that such consumables were very dangerous for anyone below the 7th layer. In any case, he asked the boy to call John so that the three of them could go to the mountain to train together. In this case, Yang understood that since there were three of them, Lingxu would join, and he became excited. However, Bao asked his disciple to promise him one thing, and the hero replied that he would do anything requested. Thus, the master asked the boy to protect Lingxi no matter what happens. And in response, Yang assured Bao not to worry, as with him there, no beasts would be able to hurt her. Without delay, it was time for the group to move train on the mountain, and the master led his students to the location. 10 days later, Lingxi was completely surprised, as in such a short time, one had advanced to the 7th layer and the other to the 8th. The one in the 8th was Jian, and our hero, who was in the 7th, commented that Lingxi was also almost at that level. However, she was disappointed because her progress wasn't as fast. Anyway, the protagonist told her not to worry, as he would always be there to protect her. But Lingxi still didn't want the boy to be her bodyguard. At that moment, the protagonist looked deep into the forest and found a crimson passion flower. Quickly, Lingxi approached to investigate and logically asked why there was a legendary flower there. In this case, Jan asked what this crimson passion flower was. The legends say that the empress of the Yulong Empire was a descendant of the human race and a princess of the Tanmo clan, who died at the hands of her enemy from the Shenchuan clan. Enraged by this, the emperor fought a long battle and avenged his beloved's death, making it so that no member of the Shenchuan clan was ever seen again. Grieved by his failure to protect her and gravely wounded, he used his blood to bathe a sea of flowers that stood at his beloved's tomb. And later, people began to use this flower as a symbol of love and beauty, as well as in weddings. Thus, our hero told Lingxi that God had placed this flower there as a sign for the two of them to marry and live happily ever after. This obviously makes her very embarrassed, but suddenly, the two fall to the ground. Then Jian, who also didn't understand what was happening, was pulled down as well. Embarrassed on the ground, Lingxi questioned what Yang was doing. The hero told her to stay quiet because someone was coming their way. After relocating to a more suitable place to hide, the warriors observed two men complaining about not having found the relic they came to search for. Hanwei strikes a tree with his sword and says he doesn't believe there's an ancient ruin in such a dense area. Jumming, on the other hand, tells his companion to stay focused because if they find nothing, they will just report back. At that moment, however, the first warrior spots a crimson passion flower on the ground. His companion explains that this is a very rare flower to see in everyday life. However, the boy hated this thing, so he prepared to destroy the flower with a strike. Faced with this, our hero couldn't let that happen, as that flower was something he intended to give to Lingxi. So without thinking twice, the hero took his brother's sword and defended the flower from the strike. In this case, the warrior angrily questioned what our hero was doing, and Yang apologized but said that this crimson passion flower was something he was looking for. In any case, that warrior didn't care, and Yang simply asked that the little flower be left in peace. However, Hanwei wasn't willing to reach a consensus and said he didn't need permission to cut a flower. Thus, the hero commented that the warrior wasn't very good with words. In response, Hanwei praised the boy's courage, as it's not every day someone dares to speak like that to the Golden Eagle family. And to prove his dominance, the warrior attacked the protagonist, who managed to defend himself. Faced with this, Hanwei realized that the boy apparently had some skills. Understanding that the martial artist wasn't going to cooperate, Yang prepared to teach him a lesson. In this case, the warrior unleashed his aura and provoked the boy, saying he wanted to see it with his own eyes. Thus, Yang asked Hanwei to pay close attention because he would show he wasn't just all talk. And within seconds of the warning, Jiaming could sense the danger the hero radiated. Despite his attempt to warn his companion, Hanwei was quickly subdued without being able to react. Then our hero asked if the warrior was really paying attention or if he was already afraid. Realizing his friend was in danger, Jiaming drew his sword to help. However, just as he was about to attack Yang, his strike was blocked by Jian. Deflecting the blow, Jian said that since the two were fighting one-on-one fairly, the boy had no right to interfere. Quickly, Jiaming realized the warrior was at the 8th layer of body strengthening mastery. Thus, he commented that he hadn't expected to meet someone so strong in such a remote place. In response, Jian said there were many things the man couldn't even imagine. Back in our hero's fight, he finished off Hanwei, while saying he should be more polite to people in the future. After leaving the warrior in that state, Yang simply called Jian and Lingxi to leave. However, Jiaming obviously wasn't going to let things end like that. That's because striking a member of the Golden Eagle family is considered a serious crime. So Yang asked what the boy wanted, and with his sword in hand, the warrior said they would pay for what they did. Faced with this, our hero asked his brother to handle the problem, and in an instant, he disappeared. Then just a few seconds later, Jiaming screamed so loudly that it echoed through the forest. Jian sheathed his sword with yet another easy victory added to his record. Lingxi, for her part, said they needed to leave the mountain quickly because killing a member of the Golden Eagle family would bring great trouble. In this case, our hero asked if this family was really that powerful. Lingxi promptly responded that yes, they were even more powerful than any martial arts academy. Hearing this, Yang thought it was good they killed them, as he didn't want two increasingly stronger problems seeking revenge in his life. And Jian added that the warrior deserved to die for trying to destroy the flower of love between the two lovebirds. In response, the girl became very embarrassed and yelled at Jian not to talk nonsense. But in any case, she reaffirms that they must leave as quickly as possible, and so everyone departs. Moments later, the three arrive at the master's residence, but upon opening the door, Lingxi spots a strange man. Faced with this, Yang panics, thinking that the Golden Eagle family Manhua already discovered what they did. However, the man doesn't seem to be a member of that family, as he calls Lingxi my lady and says he has come to fetch her. With that, the Sword Saint orders the man to leave, saying it's not yet time. In this case, the man asks what the lady has learned in the last 3 years with the saint, but the saint becomes irritated and repeats what he said, ordering the man to leave and return only on the first day of the next year. In that case, the warrior decides to go as there are only a few days left until the new year, and he warns that he will be waiting in the city. After his departure, our hero questions what the hell just happened and who that person was. Since it was something Yang would find out sooner or later, Ba Wang decides to tell him everything now. At the beginning of next year, Lingxi will return to the Royal Tree Mansion and stay with her mother. And if Yang truly cares for her, he must keep his promise and become strong within the next 5 years. Even though he became strong and famous, Ba Wang had his martial sword soul sealed and now can only hide to survive. Hearing this, Yang becomes desperate and asks who managed to seal the Sword Saint's techniques. In this case, the saint simply comments that he knows Yang values his own life. That's why these matters are something only he can resolve, and for now, the boy must focus on his cultivation. Yang, however, becomes frustrated and says that in the future, he will be able to protect both his master and Lingxi. With that, Ba Wang says he will believe in the boy, but he warns that this world is much bigger than Yang thinks. In any case, the hero says he will become stronger and runs off to speak with Lingxi. After some time, he finds the girl apparently bored at a game table. Then the hero shouts, saying they made an eternal pact in front of the Crimson Passion Flower. In response, Lingxi says the boy is shameless. Anyway, Yang tells her that he picked the flower and dried it for her, then gives it to her as a gift representing his love for her. And without delay, he leaves, leaving Lingxi alone and embarrassed. Then, before she could even read it, the Sword Saint appears and advises his daughter to save it for when they meet again. In response, the girl says that the hero is not someone who should be taken seriously. However, Ba Wang says that in his view, the boy was sincere in every word he said. Faced with this, Lingxi comments that her father is starting to be influenced by his disciple. The saint retorts, saying that he knows this type of personality, and in any case, Yang will stay with him at the mansion. In that case, the girl hugs her father and says that if she doesn't go, no one will be able to do anything. However, Ba Wang reminds her that she agreed and therefore cannot go back on her word, besides the fact that her mother is very lonely. So the girl says that, in her heart, her father is the strongest of all. However, despite being the Sword Saint, he humbly acknowledges that there are many people stronger than him. Changing the subject, the father asks if his daughter has feelings for that boy. Very embarrassed, she denies it, saying no one would like someone as shameless as Yang. In this case, the saint asks why his daughter accepted his feelings when he gave her the flower. And quickly, Lingxi throws that card with the flower on the ground to show that she is not in love. But realizing that she's doing this against her will, Ba Wang picks up the gift and returns it to his daughter. He says that despite everything, the hero is still very talented and therefore hopes Lingxi can follow her heart in the future. With that, the saint leaves and the girl starts to wonder if Yang is really as good as her father says. Later, in Cutting Song City, a giant golden eagle flies overhead with 3 people riding it. During the flight, they express disappointment with the size of the city and can't believe that an ancient ruin is located there. Then from a distance, Yang realizes that these are members of the Golden Eagle family. Faced with this, Jian asks if they are looking for them, and initially, Yang believes they are not. In any case, they decide to go home first, and after a long time, the 2 brothers are back at Yang's house. However, just as they are about to enter, they run into their father. In this case, the man seems a bit worried and asks why the 2 are back. In response, Yang says they just returned from the martial arts academy and asks why his father's nose is blue. Suddenly, someone shouts, telling Zhengyi to stop, so the father leaves and says he will explain later. This is because at that moment, their grandfather is already waiting, and obviously the reason he ran off was that his wife was there. Upon noticing Chen's presence, our hero greets her somewhat awkwardly due to his mother's anger. Seeing her children there, all the girl's stress melts away. In any case, the hero asks what his father did wrong to make his mother so angry. Setting aside her personal issues, she replies that everything is fine. Changing the subject, she recalls hearing that her son was expelled from the academy and asks if Yuan is plotting against him. In this case, our hero tells her not to worry because everything is already resolved. Thus, she asks Jian if what Yang is saying is really true. With a smile, the boy confirms it, informing her that the academy compensated for their mistake with many cultivation resources. At that moment, the hero's younger sister, Manju, also arrives to greet her brothers. She immediately hugs the protagonist, prompting him to ask if she missed him. In response, she smiles brightly and asks her brother to accompany her to Moxiang's to buy novels. However, the girl's mother quickly dismisses the idea by not giving her permission. In response, the hero explains that he has many things to do, but he will definitely take her another time. Because of this, she gives Yang a kiss on the cheek and says her brother is the best. Then the head of the family and Yang's grandfather, Chen Yangjin, appears. Out of respect for the elder, the two warriors give their proper greetings to their grandfather. Without delay, the old man asks them to follow him inside the house. After a brief conversation, the elder understands that the two have gained some valuable things this year at the academy. However, he warns our hero that it's not good to be arrogant, and that after the new year, Yang might get another chance. The hero, in turn, wasn't expecting this scolding but understood the advice. Shifting the focus to Jan, the elder comments that the disadvantages of cultivating the Lord's celestial art have already begun to appear. He explains that as the boy cultivates, his pain will increase and he must ensure not to manifest his martial soul within 3 years. Jan acknowledges this and says he will keep it in mind as time passes and night falls. At the hero's residence, everyone eats happily, except for Chen, who is still very upset with her husband. In any case, Yangjin proposes a toast to the boys for surpassing the 8th layer. At that moment, however, someone knocks on the door and the hero's mother tells him to see who it is. Promptly, our hero goes to the door and unexpectedly finds Lingxi standing there. Faced with this, the protagonist is obviously surprised and the girl asks with a smile if Yang doesn't recognize her. To break the ice, the hero asks if Lingxi already misses him, even though she's only been away for 3 days. The girl explains sadly that she's leaving tomorrow and decided to pass through the city one last time. In this case, the hero asks if she would like him to show her around the place where he lives. Already offering to come in, Lingxi mentions that she hasn't eaten anything yet. Thus, Yang invites her to his home to meet his parents, and Lingxi hopes the hero is serious. Within seconds, the two enter the dining room, leaving the whole family very confused. Menju doesn't think much and immediately compliments the beauty of the girl who came with her brother. Hearing this, Lingxi smiles and pats the little girl's head. Chen, in turn, asks if the girl is a friend of her son and pulls out a chair for her to sit. And since it was taking too long for any explanation, the lady asked if Yang was going to introduce his friend to everyone. In this case, he explained that she was his honorary older sister and the daughter of his master. With that, Chen got the answer she wanted and mentioned that the girl would always be welcome in their home. John, on the other hand, gave a mischievous smile and asked if she was just a training sister. And of course, for making such an indecent question, he was punished by his wife. Regardless, Chen raised her glass for everyone to toast to welcome Lingxi. After some time at dinner, the two lovebirds went out for a walk in the city. Suddenly, the hero noticed something and quickly ran toward it, leaving Lingxi curious. Yang ran to a certain tree and asked if the girl knew what kind of tree it was. In response, she suggested it might be a gu feng, and in this case, Yang asked if she knew its meaning. Since she didn't, the protagonist explained that gu feng is a tree that grows in the cold and its leaves are completely dependent on each other. For this reason, legends say that when one prays beside such a tree, a broken heart can be healed. Then after the speech, our hero held Lingxi's hands and finally managed to kiss her. After the kiss, both were obviously embarrassed, and to break the ice, the hero said he would see her again in the future. With that, Lingxi understood, and to change the subject, he reminded her that they were under the tree of love, so they should start working. However, the girl didn't understand what kind of work he meant, and naturally, this work was Yang's metaphor for something perverted. So Lingxi stomped on the hero's foot and said she would ignore him from now on. Despite Yang trying to run after her, she continued walking away without looking back. That same night, in another place, Guan was also having dinner with family and acquaintances. Li Junru, the young master of the Golden Eagle family, asked if the boy had any updated information about the Cheoj Mountains. In response, the boy said no, but informed that Guan family forces had already entered the inner circle to investigate. In this case, the young master ordered the boy to send more men, as he had spent the entire year in that eerie place precisely for this purpose. Guan then asked Li Junru to remain calm, as his master had already investigated, and all indications pointed to the thunder in the academy exam being a sign of treasures. Thus, the young master hoped it was true, but as he looked out the window, he spotted Lingxi. And at the moment he saw her, he was immediately captivated by the girl's surreal beauty. Faced with such beauty, the boy thought he hadn't expected to find such an impressive woman in a place like this. Then the young master quickly asked Guan who those two people on the street were. And unfortunately, our hero was there once again to torment Guan's life. With no choice, the boy explained that Yang was the disciple of the Sword Saint and someone who had been expelled from the academy. As for Lingxi, he said she was the saint's daughter, and Lei Junru quickly understood who this warrior was. He swiftly explained that Guan might not know, but the man was famous in his region for being someone who followed after having his skills sealed. However, Lingxi was someone he had heard many good things about, and for this reason, he believed she had some abilities. Given the coincidence of finding such a sweet girl on New Year's Eve, he decided to go down to meet her. But an elder quickly warned him, as this beautiful girl had a master, and thus she couldn't be approached so easily. In this case, the boy told his uncle that he was aware of the consequences, which is why he only planned to meet her in a friendly way. After all, despite being a very beautiful girl, Lei Junru was still someone constantly surrounded by women. In any case, he jumped to where the two were and immediately asked if Lingxi was the girl from Manhua Mansion. In response, she asked if the two knew each other, and following his plan, the boy introduced himself, saying she must have heard of him. Unfortunately for him, the girl said she had never heard of him. Then Lei Junru explained that his family had a good relationship with Lingxi's, and for that reason, he wanted to invite her for a chat. However, the girl stood firm in her decision as she did not know this man. And so they leave without even looking back, which makes the young master extremely furious. After that scene, the hero, disgusted, says it's the first time he's seen someone so proud. Lingxi, on the other hand, warns that Yang probably can't beat him, especially since he's the young master of the Golden Eagle family. At this point, the protagonist remembers this family and gets even more irritated that the young master is trying to court his woman. Regardless, the hero asks Lingxi to stop calling him by the nickname his mother gave him. Then the girl reminds him that Yang also calls her by a nickname, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. For her, it's something affectionate, and very cleverly, as this romantic mood arises, the hero tries to kiss Lingxi again. However, this time she's not in the mood and turns her back, leaving the hero drooling. Time passes, and as the night ends, Lingxi's departure day arrives. Keeping her word, the girl climbs onto the mount with the person responsible for taking her and says her goodbyes to everyone. This leaves our hero and his master alone. At that moment, Ba Wang asks if the protagonist has the desire to follow them. And seeing no response, the master asks what the two did the previous night to leave the boy so distracted. In this case, the hero teases him, saying they did something that can't be undone. Ba Wang restrains himself from hitting his disciple because he knows he's lying. Regardless, Yang asks when they'll be able to go to Channon, but the master only asks why the boy wants to go there. The hero obviously has his reasons, but Ba Wang advises that his disciple should focus on cultivating first. Therefore, the master leaves, leaving Yang deep in thought. But despite everything, our hero knows that he will definitely go to Channon to find Lingxi. A day after Lingxi's departure, our hero continues reading the scrolls while his master drinks a cup of tea. But that in a rumble shakes the place, and faced with this, Yang asks if there's an earthquake happening. The Sword Saint explains that the real problem is coming, and in the future, this city may no longer exist. Obviously, the hero doesn't understand what's being said and becomes desperate. So the master asks if the boy remembers the previous sky incident at the academy, as that was the sign of a treasure's birth. It's said that the birth of a treasure is a double-edged sword, because the treasure always attracts evil men. And during this time, many powerful people will unleash their strength over the treasure, leading to great disasters. In this case, the hero wonders if this could be the work of the Golden Eagle family. Suddenly, Jin appears in a panic, telling his brother that something is wrong outside the house. However, the hero doesn't go to check because their grandfather told them to go to the academy and probably foresaw this. The master, in turn, comments that he previously ventured into the depths of the Challenge Mountain range and found a sealed treasure. Obviously, the two boys are very surprised, and Ba Wang adds that the treasure is guarded by terrible monsters. He explains that even the great masters of the Purple Palace struggle against them, so this earthquake must be the beast's wrath from being disturbed. In this case, the hero mentions that the culprits must be members of the Golden Eagle family, as he encountered a group of them earlier. Hearing this, the master becomes very angry because they are not considering the lives of civilians. Bao Wang, tired of harboring his anger, calls the two brothers to go see for themselves. At the same time, in another region, the general questions the Golden Eagle family about what they did on Cheaj Mountain. But quite arrogantly, no one seems too concerned about it. One of them, however, tells General Huishan not to make strange accusations because, in their view, the beasts fool it out of loneliness. In this case, Huishan becomes even more irritated, knowing that this man's family is also involved in the matter. The elder of the Guan family feels offended by this, so he tells the general not to feel overly confident just because he has an army. Thus, Huishan says he already knows what the elder is plotting, and for that reason, he has sent messenger pigeons with news of the treasure. Because of this, the elder of the Guan family breaks a cup in anger over his plans being ruined. Faced with this, he asks his second uncle what they should do now. And the uncle responds that, with the news of the treasure spreading, strong individuals will appear, to the point where even the royal family might be alerted. That's why they must act decisively and take the warriors they have to enter the mountain and invade the sacred site immediately. However, it was too cruel for the two to accept right away because this plan would essentially use human lives as a shield. Nevertheless, the elder of the Guan family had no choice but to accept the plan to invade Chaj Mountain. Later, at the foot of the mountain, many people were already gathered there. Among them was the protagonist's senior sister, so he asked her what the situation was. Upon seeing Yang, she was happy and informed him that monsters and spiritual beasts continued to emerge from the mountain. This could be seen with their own eyes, as at that moment, a giant wild bear began crushing several soldiers. Quickly, that bear charged toward our protagonist, but Ba Wan was there, and with just one strike, he took it down. However, there wasn't just one beast, so the soldiers were still in danger. Thus, the hero asked why the Martial Arts Academy's forces weren't there. In response, the master said he didn't know because when the monsters broke through the defense, the first to suffer the consequences would be the Academy members. But at that moment, though a bit late, the elders of the martial arts academy arrived. Seeing this, the soldiers began to believe they would be saved, and one of them noticed the city lord's presence there as well. Along with Lord Hangu of the city, the general was present with more soldiers. Faced with this, Jian felt a bit more cheerful, because with so many warriors there, defeating the monsters would be much easier. However, the master shattered that fantasy, saying that it was probably not as simple as the boy imagined. Without wasting time, the elder of the Golden Eagle family ordered his soldiers into the mountains to kill the monsters. From afar, our hero could barely contain his hatred for the members of that family. In response to the elder's command, General Huishan shouted for the warriors not to follow those reckless orders. However, the city lord sided with the elder and ordered the general not to confuse the troops. But knowing that the lord's opinion had been bought, Huishan wouldn't accept it and shouted for everyone to hear that he was a lackey of others. The elder of the Golden Eagle family saw this as a provocation and charged at the general. With just one palm strike, the old man sent Huishan flying and shattered a mountain. Now gravely injured, the general asked if the elder was at the level of heavenly harmony power, which left Yang desperate. From what the hero knew about the martial arts realms, there are 5 in total. The first is the body tempering realm, which is the most basic and foundational for a martial artist. Next comes the true martial realm, specialized in rageful Kai that can be used to release energy and control Kai in the sky. After that is the martial arts realm with solid Danshin Ki, which can be transformed and is based on cultivation techniques. Cultivation in the martial arts realm, even in Channan County, is considered a significant power. However, the Heavenly Harmony realm is at the top because, to reach it, one must comprehend all things in the world and awaken martial intent. Finally, above that is the legendary power of the Purple Palace realm, and it seems that only the king of the Eastern Land has reached this level. With that, the elder from earlier orders the general to take his men and lead them to the mountain's entrance. When Huishan wanted to question it, that malicious look made him stay quiet. So all the general could do was accept the orders and march along with the others. Later, the first monsters begin to appear and many soldiers are already being defeated. Faced with this, Yang comments to his master that if things continue like this, most people will die before reaching the destination. The master explains that at this moment, the others are the knife and they are the fish, and this is the sorrow of being weak. Because of this, all that's left for the hero is to cultivate even during this brief pause. After a short break, the general reports that his battalion has suffered heavy losses, so they won't be able to lead anymore. The young master then thinks that if he pushes the man too hard, it could lead to a fight to the death. Thus, he turns and considers our hero as a potential solution. In response to the general, the young master says that tomorrow he will be in the 2nd rank and the martial artists will take the front line. The next morning, our hero begins marching alongside many other warriors, and suddenly he spots something up ahead that leaves both him and Jian astonished. It was an immense stone tower, which could very well be the treasure's location. Back in the fight, the elder once again ordered the warriors to enter the mountain and kill the monsters. Dean, on the other hand, asked if he could take the students back while the masters moved forward toward the beasts. Faced with this, the master accepted the request, but there was still a rebel in front of him. In any case, after losing the confrontation, the general said he would take half the battalion to the mountain while the rest stayed to defend. Thus, the elder liked the proposal and Huishan entrusted his daughter to the half that stayed behind. Once again, the Golden Eagle Master ordered everyone to the mountains to kill the monsters. With a quick malicious thought, Guan asked the young master to take Yang Chen along. In this case, the boy asked who this person was, but when he saw him, he immediately remembered the boy. The master, for his part, ordered them not to be involved. But Lei Junru said this could be an excellent opportunity for the disciple to gain some experience. Obviously, Bao Wang doesn't like the idea of being ordered around by that boy. Faced with this, Yang shouts for his master not to get upset, saying this could actually be a good chance for him to learn. In this case, the master reconsiders and starts to see the advantage of having his disciple there to find the treasure. So he accepts and says he also wants to witness the Golden Eagle family claiming the treasure with his own eyes. Without delay, Lei Junru shouts with joy upon seeing the place where the treasure is possibly hidden. He thinks that within this massive wall, the legacy of Emperor Yulong must be concealed. Because of this, he believes that if he obtains the legacy, he will also advance in many other ways, which will definitely make him famous throughout the East, elevating his family to immortal status. The hero's master, on the other hand, analyzes everything very seriously. Upon noticing a gap in the stones, he suspects that the unicorn beast from before is still there. With that, Lei Junru asks his uncle to look at the giant wall in front of them. In this case, the uncle comments that if this was left by Emperor Yulong, it is no trivial matter. At this moment, the treasure has not yet been born, but if it is forced to emerge, it could create unpredictable dangers. The boy agrees that the explanation makes sense and decides to find someone to check it out for them. Without delay, he approaches Yang and saying that the boy seems to be the most comfortable so far, orders the hero to go to the wall. However, as expected, his master steps in front of his disciple. In response, the uncle threatens, saying he hopes the Sword Saint isn't challenging them. Faced with this, Ba-Wang releases his aura and says that the boy is his apprentice and therefore only follows his orders. Then Lee Junru's uncle says the Sword Saint no longer has the strength to impose himself on anyone in his current state. Gradually, tempers rise and a fight seems imminent. However, Yang stops his master and asks to go investigate the treasure site. In this case, Ba-Wang calls his disciple stupid, and Jian also intervenes, saying that his brother can't go. Regardless, the hero is determined, so he asks his brother to tell their grandfather that he'll be his grandson in the next life. The boy winks at Jian, leaving him confused about what his brother means by that. Once again, the hero's master shouts that his disciple can't go. However, the protagonist assures him that it's fine and asks Ba-Wang to trust him. Then in that very moment, Yang jumps toward the abyss where the treasure lies. Despite everyone's confusion, the hero descends without any issues and Lee Junru is pleased that no danger has appeared so far. However, Yang had yet to notice that a beast was hidden among the rubble. The moment the intruder appeared, the beast awoke as a giant monster. Quickly, the aura emanating from the beast began to overpower all the weaker warriors. Upon awakening, the monster is furious with the intruders who disturbed its slumber, and for this reason it will spare no effort to kill all the warriors. And among them, obviously, his first victim had to be Yang, who got caught in the crossfire. Faced with this, the allied warriors began to panic, having seen Yang swallowed alive. Even more desperate than them were his master and his brother. The master, for his part, couldn't contain his anger toward the Golden Eagle family. Yang still didn't know, but Ba-Wang hadn't accepted him as a disciple by coincidence. The master had been trying to save someone that day, but hadn't expected to find a boy with all the attributes of a celestial Taoist master. Under his guidance, the boy became his disciple, but now, because of his ego, everything was lost. Because of this, the master gathered all his strength and began to reclaim his martial soul. Even though this could potentially lead to his death, Ba-Wang didn't care and charged toward the Golden Eagle family. As his first victim, the master sent several energy beams toward the young master. Even though he tried to flee, the boy didn't have enough power to avoid being impaled by them. Unlike Lee Junru, his uncle managed to defend himself, but with great effort. Thus, he was impressed by Ba-Wang's strength, even after the severe injury he had suffered. Joining the fight as well, Jian appeared but hid from the dragon behind a rock. However, the boy somehow sensed that his brother was still alive. Unexpectedly, the hero ended up in a distant place with a beautiful waterfall. He wondered where he was but heard a voice saying it had always been waiting for him there. At that moment, the hero began to remember what had happened before he arrived, but the voice continued calling him. He thought it was because of this voice that he had agreed to explore the stone wall, but he never expected to be swallowed alive by the beast. At that moment, the boy looked at a tree and even from a distance, spotted a small beetle. He wondered what was happening and if he had managed to consolidate his essence. The voice from before asked if the boy was satisfied with their first meeting. Then, a ball of energy flew into the sky and the hero asked what it was. In this case, the energy responded that this enormous place was, in fact, the sea of his knowledge. Sensing that Yang was afraid, the entity said that fear wasn't good because the great devourer doesn't fear, he brings fear to others. With that, our hero asked what a devourer was. This question embarrassed the entity for accidentally revealing some information. Trying to change the subject, it asked who was in the Yang family now, and the boy became even more confused. In any case, the ball of energy gave up asking, assuming there were still many people. Moving on to the next point, Yang was asked if he liked swords, and he replied that he did. In this case, the entity was pleased with the answer, and said that because of this, it would grant another piece of fortune to the boy. However, our hero still couldn't see any of this supposed fortune. Back in the real world, the beast told the protagonist to leave and return when he had become a successful cultivator. Then the hero woke up, panicking as he realized that the entity was actually the beast that had swallowed him. Looking around, the boy noticed that his master was in a critical state. So he rushed to his aid, and while Jian cried, Yang tried to get some information. The master, for his part, tried to comfort Yang, saying he wouldn't die from such wounds. However, the protagonist remained furious with the Golden Eagle family. In this case, Yang asked the mythical beast to kill all the descendants of the Golden Eagle family. Unexpectedly, the beast complied, leaving both the master and Jian completely shocked. Seeing this, Ba-Wang warned that if the beast had shown interest in Yang, it was likely that it would offer its inheritance later on. The hero took the advice to heart, saying he would ask about it later. 30 minutes after the beast's departure, it returned to the same place. Quickly, it informed them that it had successfully carried out the orders, and since they were bad men, the monster had shown no mercy. Thus, the hero thanked the mythical beast for its help. But at the same time, Lee Junru managed to escape because he realized that the beast was chasing the embroidery on his clothing. Changing the subject, Yang flattered the beast a bit and asked if it could heal his master. In response, the animal said that saving his life wasn't a problem, but without a treasure, his martial soul couldn't be restored. In this case, Ba-Wang no longer cares and says he'll be happy just to stay alive. Then the beast follows through on its words and releases an energy that makes the master faint. Afterward, the monster informs them that Bagwan will be fine after a good night's sleep. Yang, meanwhile, remembers the inheritance and asks the creature if there is one within this giant wall. But to his disappointment, the mythical being tells him that this place is merely a cemetery that cannot be explored by outsiders. The beast explains that at first it intended to scare the boy away, but seeing how weak he is, it changed its mind. In this case, it asks Yang to stay there, cultivate, and promises to give him a gift when he leaves. With that, the beast simply disappears in a cloud of smoke. Yang believes the monster is playing tricks on him because it doesn't make sense that he deserves a gift. Turning to his brother, Jian comments that the spiritual energy of the place is very strong, suggesting that they both cultivate here. Yang takes the advice and sits down to start cultivating, but suddenly, he feels something. Unexpectedly, the boy awakened the sword marshal's soul as an additional one. And upon closer inspection, he is suddenly transported to a battlefield. He realizes that his divine consciousness has entered the sword marshal's soul. But along with that place, there is also the presence of a super powerful entity that begins to control everything. The being introduces itself as Shingo, from a millennial generation that traveled through the 10,000 realms of Chanzu, defeating all swordsmen. Shingo starts filling our hero's mind with information about sword souls. He explains that only the new generation can inherit the 13 swords that devour the heavens, leaving Yang very confused. It's believed that among the top 10 supreme martial souls, the sword-devouring martial soul ranks in the top 8. Normal martial souls are already extremely powerful, and supreme souls possess even greater strength, capable of challenging the heavens. With this, the hero understands that an inheritance has been left behind for millennia, and only the current generation can become the true god of swords. It's said that the most terrifying aspect of this art is the burial of creation, because anyone classified as a celestial Taoist is consumed and buried in this place. Since ancient times, no one knows how many masters have been buried, and the wielder of the sword-devouring art holds the power to possess the abilities of these warriors. However, there's a limitation. The host mind must be strong enough to draw the swords. With this, our hero takes his first test and prepares to see which soul he can obtain. At the moment he receives the power, Yang awakens, startled but very happy to realize the quality of the ability. Faced with this, his master shows up to check on his disciple's cultivation. He asks if the boy is stupid for the face he's making and what he managed to achieve during training. However, Yang refuses to tell him, which leaves Bagwang very irritated. Regardless, the hero says he's very happy for his master, leaving the saint confused about what that means. In this case, the protagonist explains that he's proud Bagwang has a disciple and son-in-law as amazing as him. This, of course, irritates the master even more, and Jian thinks his brother is even more shameless than before. Thus, he says he no longer supports Yang's relationship with Lingxi, and the hero asks the saint to be more loving. Bagwang, now very angry, asks if the protagonist even knows how to spell the word loving. The hero, embarrassed, says his master needs to teach him that so he can learn. Regardless, Bagwang changes the subject, saying he's hungry. And since they are in the Sword Emperor's territory, the hero knows that not even a monster will dare approach. But Yang still asks Jian to look for something for them to eat. A month later, the protagonist continues cultivating with all his effort and develops immense power. Seeing this, Jian is impressed that his brother is already nearing the peak of the true martial realm. However, the master finds no use in this because the first sword movement he taught his disciple has still not been mastered. In this case, he becomes very irritated for having accepted Yang as his apprentice and keeps complaining about his lack of talent. Finally, out of patience, the master says he's going to find something to eat, while the two of them should continue practicing. Meanwhile, our hero continues to focus on his cultivation, which is improving more and more. After another month, the protagonist reached a surprising level of strength. Bagwang finally admitted that the boy was ready. At that moment, the mythical beast appeared and immediately told Yang to return to the normal human world because this place was no longer safe. Moreover, the beast gave the gift and a promise to our hero and asked him to take good care of it. However, Yang was disappointed with the Sword Emperor Zhenwu, who only gave him a dog as a reward. Still, the boy thought that at least he now had a pet. The master also commented, disappointed, that after checking, it appeared the animal was just an ordinary monster. However, our hero was starting to warm up to his new little companion. Jian couldn't stop thinking that there seemed to be a terrible power hidden inside the pet. Changing the subject, the boy believed they should name the group's new mascot. Jian suggested naming the pet Shub Jingwang, but the name didn't quite fit. The master, in turn, said the name should be Gaochen because it was related to the two of them. Since he didn't like either option, the hero named the animal Wankai, even though it was a common name for dogs. In this case, Jian asked his brother to change the name to Xiao Hai, and the hero decided to accept. Faced with this, the animal became a bit irritated, so the protagonist gave it a few pats on the head to discipline it. Xiao Hai started to whimper, but our hero didn't feel sorry for him and continued patting him to make him stay quiet. From a distance, the mythical beast observed this aggressive treatment and had to hold back its anger to avoid intervening. Later, the main group arrived in the city and noticed that the place was completely destroyed. Since many houses had been wrecked, Jian suggested they go to their residence. Without wasting time, the group ran there, but upon arrival, the place was in the same condition as the rest of the city. Our hero cried out in desperation, but suddenly someone recognized him and called out his name. It was Uncle Yu, so Yang asked where his father and the others were. In response, Yu said they were fine and had already left, but the old man had left a message for his grandson. The message was, when the stars fall and the sky turns red, the autumn mountains will meet. Jan believed that as long as his family was safe, everything was fine. Uncle Yu then asked what the boy's plans for the future were and offered his house for the two to stay. Yang politely declined the man's offer and asked what happened recently in Chaj City. Uncle Yu explained that Guanzi had appeared and caused many casualties, along with the academy and foreign powers that wanted to overthrow the general. Moreover, he didn't know what methods the man had used to become the city's lord, but from now on, it belonged to his family. Thus, the hero realized that they couldn't return because the academy was also under control now. Because of this, he called Jian to go to the Guan residence and settle things once and for all. However, the master didn't let the two go so easily. He said there were still survivors from those who went to the wall, and if Yang appeared, he would surely associate him with the inheritance. Since he couldn't appear now, the protagonist asked where they should go next. Fortunately, the master said their next destination was Tannen, where Lingxi was. Without wasting time, the master gave Jian a bag of money and told him to see if there was a passage available to Tannen. As the master had opted for an arranged flight, the hero became quite anxious. Bao Guang explained that the city was thousands of kilometers away, so the only options were the flight arrangement or riding on a flying monster. Fortunately, Jan managed to purchase 3 tickets for that night, as a new station had opened in the city. Before they left, Bao Guang reminded the two boys to keep their identities hidden. Time passed, and that same night, the group went to the place for the flight. Quickly, the inscription master activated the flight arrangement and cast it into the sky, transforming it into something enormous. The hero was impressed and could hardly contain his excitement at the thought of one day learning to create something like that. Within seconds, all 3 boarded the arrangement and the flight began. Inside, Yang comments that it's almost time to see Lingxi and asks why Bao Guang still looks so unhappy. In response, the master explains that Chanan is no better than Cheoj, and that it's a difficult place to blend in and find the girl. In this case, the hero asks if his master didn't do something wrong at home and got kicked out by his wife. But anyway, since he's never traveled there before, Yang asks his master to tell him more about the city. Bao Guang explains that the place is full of aristocratic families, some of them ancient with genius martial artists. These are the fierce wolves who will do anything to compete for resources, just like the Golden Eagle family. Therefore, it's not enough for an artist to have talent, they also need training resources. Because of this, the master warns that when the boys have an opportunity, they must seize it. 3 days later, the flying vessel finally arrives at their destination and our hero can already see everything from the window. Quickly, he shouts for his master to wake up because they've arrived in Chanan. Still by the window, Yang becomes more and more impressed by everything he sees. After Jian and Bao Guang wake up, the hero asks if this is really the city of Tainan. And upon noticing the number of beasts flying freely, Yang is left in awe. Regardless, the master orders his disciple to follow him because he needs to take him to a certain place first. In this case, Yang asks, with eyes gleaming in anticipation, what place that might be, but Bao Guang just repeats his order. The hero, on the other hand, asks if Lingxi lives there and Bao Guang questions what the boy is talking about. Then the hero says his master is amazing because all the girls there are smitten with him. But anyway, he asks what the consequences would be if he entered to search for the girl without worrying. First, Bao Guang asserts that Yang cannot enter, and second, he says that if the hero talks about their relationship, he'll be beaten. So the protagonist decides to let it go, content that just knowing Lingxi is there makes him happy. This attitude pleases the master, so he agrees to show his disciple the door to the place. Soon after, the group arrives at the Liu mansion, where 2 guards are standing watch. Upon their arrival, one of the guards asks if Bao Guang has any business there. Faced with this, the master reveals his identity and asks the guards to inform the person inside that he has come to visit. The guard sighs and goes to deliver the message to his lord. After a short while, a man named Liu Yun appears and greets the swordsman on behalf of his father, who is inside. Inside the mansion are Liu Mingyuan and Liu Yuhuan. As they sit down, the saint says it's a pleasure to see his brother Mingyuan, who hasn't visited in a long time. However, the man doesn't even look Bao Guang in the eye, which leaves him a bit irritated. But his brother breaks the silence, saying that the reason Bao Guang came to visit surely isn't just to greet him. In this case, the saint introduces his 2 disciples and says he hopes to leave them there for a while. Since his brother already knows about his situation, Bao Guang explains that his students have talent and will be able to leave as soon as the academy recruits new students. However, Yuan doubts that these boys have the talent to be admitted to the local school. Yum counters the proposal, saying that doing this would harm them and possibly offend the Shadow Master. Thus, Bao Guang asks if Mingyuan's opinion is the same as his son's. When he refuses to respond, the Sword Saint takes it as a yes. Yuan comments that even though they have nothing, they must still maintain their honor. Because of this, the master stands up and leaves with his 2 disciples. Mingyuan, in turn, orders his son to escort them to the mansion's exit. Faced with this, he mocks them, saying that in the future, the title of Sword Saint may no longer exist. Yumoon is the most skeptical because the boys are only at the 9th layer, which is too little by the standards of the local school. After leaving, the hero suggests they find an inn first to settle in, and Jian agrees. However, the master thinks it's better for them to leave the city, which confuses Yang because in theory, they have money for an inn. In this case, the saint explains that he used to have a garden at the foot of a solitary mountain, but now he doesn't know what state it's in. That's why they are going to check it out, and given the chance to have such a great place, Yang asks why they went to seek help from foreigners. Without an answer, the three head to the garden, and Bob Wong is surprised to find someone living there. Faced with this, he sends Jiao to knock on the door to see who it is. Unexpectedly, a child opens the gate and asks if the big brother is there to see Aunt Jing too. This was enough for the master to understand that he could enter, and inside, Jing commented that she thought the boy had died. In response, Bao Wang, somewhat embarrassed, says that he can't die. The hero wonders if this is the master's beloved or an old friend, but from the look on her face, you can already tell that she was disappointed. This became obvious when considering Bao Wang's personality. Jing, on her part, could barely contain her surprise as she took a closer look at the saint. She could sense that his martial soul had been extinguished, so she asked if this was the work of the Dark Assassin Master. However, Bao Wang explained that it wasn't that, and that, unfortunately, he had provoked a terrible monster. In any case, the woman asked who the two ugly children with the saint were, and Yang felt a bit offended. It was then explained that the two were his disciples, and that they had very good talents. Yang, however, couldn't stop thinking about the comment regarding his appearance, because he had become somewhat useless. Bob Wong suggested that Jing should find someone better than him in the city. However, she shouted that for a long time she had been desired by the saint, and because of this, no one in the city wanted her. Thus, the disciples' suspicions about their master's flirtatious nature were confirmed. Jing asked if Bob Wang was confused for trying to argue with her about something so stupid. Then the saint said that if she didn't want to talk, he could leave. The woman replied that if he left, she would definitely break his leg. After some bickering, everyone entered the residence, and the brothers were impressed by the beauty of the place. Jing then instructed Han to take the two boys to the back room so they could calm down. The young girl Han introduced herself to the group and asked the boys to follow her. Both Yang and Jian were impressed by the girl's beauty and charm. After some time, they arrived at the place where they would spend the night. To strike up a conversation, the hero asked if the girl was the older or younger sister and what her relationship was with Aunt Jing. But the girl seemed very shy and simply turned to leave without answering any of the questions. The next day, our hero woke up and soon saw his master standing in front of his room. In this case, Yang commented that since he and Jing hadn't seen each other for a long time, he assumed the two didn't get any sleep. Naturally, the sword Sink became quite irritated by his student's perverted insinuations. At that moment, Jing appeared and asked Bao Wang if this boy was really his apprentice. Promptly, the hero greeted the woman, and in response, she commented that the more she looked, the more handsome Yang became. To start a conversation, the boy said that his master had missed Jing a lot in Chouj, which piqued her interest. Continuing, the hero said that even though he could be deceived, his teacher couldn't. That's why Yang said that whenever he made tea, Bob Wang approved, even though it was terrible tea. Thus, he believed this might be out of nostalgia, but without realizing it, Yang had made Jing furious. Angry at what she had just heard, the woman walked away, and the hero began to think that maybe he had been talking about another woman with whom Bao Wang used to drink tea. In that case, he apologized to the saint, saying that he was just trying to be honest. Despite being the flirt in this situation, the master scolded his student for ruining his reputation. With that, Yang ran off, but before leaving, he advised Bagwan to talk to the woman and apologize. Then, the master grew enraged and thought that one day he would definitely get rid of this child. Thus, Yang and Jian, who had just arrived in Tianan, settled in the Garden of Swords. A month later, our hero continued practicing and developed new skills. After training, Yang thought that the art of devouring the sky, inherited from the Sword of 13 Creations, was indeed a difficult technique. Just the first technique was enough to drain all his energy, and at that moment, Jian appeared to ask what was going on. The hero says that they should practice later because with his current cultivation, he still can't fully practice the sword art he possesses. By the way, he asks why the girl who welcomed them on the first day has been missing. Jian informs him that her name is Han and that she is a student at Channan's martial arts academy, so she'll only be back in a month. With this, the hero praises his brother for knowing so much about the situation. At that moment, Aunt Jing arrives with Xiao Hai, and Yang feels very envious of the animal. The master also appears and immediately asks Jing if she has any new information. The girl explains that she asked for an investigation, but it will still be difficult for the boys to get into the academy before the exam. However, she says that if Bob Wang is willing to ask the master or the uncle, the matter could be resolved quickly. At this, the sword saint starts trembling with anxiety just at the thought of meeting either of those two monsters. In the midst of the discussion, our hero asks if it wouldn't be better to practice in the garden instead of going to Tianan's academy. Jing tells Yang not to compare Cheoja's school with Tianan's academy and says that the only way to grow stronger is by attending. Naturally, the protagonist is confused and asks why that is. It is said that there are 3 reasons, the first being that Yang carries the inheritance of Cheoj, and this matter will eventually come to light. Therefore, by becoming a student at a higher status school like Tannen, this could save the boy's life. Jing asserts that the small sword garden cannot keep the hero there, and the second reason is the resources the academy offers. Then the third and most attractive reason for the hero is that Lingxi is studying at that academy. In this case, the hero's eyes light up with excitement. Yang quickly changes his mind, asking his master to take him to the academy, leaving Jing embarrassed by his attitude. In response to the request, the master informs him that when the girl from before returns, she will be their guide to the school. At the end of the month, Jing is walking through the garden with Xiao Hai, and upon seeing her, our hero immediately asks if today is the day the girl will return. With that, Jing informs him that she told the girl that the hero could follow her the next morning, but obviously without causing any trouble. Yang thanks her, and changing the subject, the lady decides to ask the protagonist something. With a serious expression, she questions why Bao Wang lost his cultivation. Understanding that his master didn't tell her for a reason, the hero begins to think about how to avoid the topic. Like a good liar, he says that his master was injured because of him one day when they were on the mountain and encountered a monster. In this case, the girl asks if it was really a monster, and Yang changes the subject by asking if the injury is curable. In response, Jing says they need a treasure that can nourish the soul, but such treasures are very rare even within the royal family. Thus, the hero vows to find the treasure and restore his master's cultivation. The next day, Han indeed appears to guide the two brothers. Immediately, the protagonist asks Jing Han to tell him more about China's martial arts academy. Upon hearing this, she asks if the boy wants to hear about Lingxi or something else. In response, Yang says he wants to hear everything she has to say. In that case, she begins by saying that Lingxi is famous at the academy because she was admitted and became the main disciple of the Eastern Courtyard. On the other hand, due to her beautiful face, she became a goddess at the academy and started to be admired by many students. Hearing this, the hero feels proud of her, and Lion asks if his brother isn't afraid someone might take her. Yang replies that the two are bound for life, so no one can interfere with that. Changing the subject, the hero recalls what Han said about the Eastern Courtyard and asks if there's any difference. She explains that Qian Academy has 4 courtyards divided by regions, and the eastern one is the strongest. Yang understands the message, and soon the group arrives at the academy, with the two brothers deeply impressed. Even the entrance was much larger than Chao's Academy, and because of this, the boys agree that Tianan is incomparable. In any case, our hero feels bothered by something, and Jian asks if there's a problem. The protagonist tells the boy to take a closer look, and ahead of them were the foreigners from before. Lu Yun cannot understand why the disciples of the Sword Sing are there. When asked if he knows those two, Yun says they are worthless apprentices from a rural town. Obviously, this remark hurts the hero's pride, and he becomes furious with the boy. In this case, he asks Han what would happen if he were to beat up Yun right there. Faced with this, the timid girl begins to sweat just thinking about the trouble Yang might cause. To clarify, the hero asks if any mentor at the academy would intervene if he hit a student. Han explains that only the big names are protected, but there is a rule that both parties must agree for a duel to take place. Still, since both are students, the girl becomes very anxious and advises Yang not to start that fight. However, our hero is already determined to fight, as those laws please him greatly. With a shout, the protagonist called Lu to battle and said he would teach the boy a lesson. Because of the language used and the lack of courtesy, the boy's guard found it quite arrogant. As a result, Lu became very irritated by the hero's provocations. His sister, on the other hand, in defense of the boy, called Yang poor and said that her family services were too noble for him. To this, Yang replied that although he had never hit a woman, it was still hard to hold back. He called the girl a cheap servant, which made her absolutely furious. In any case, the hero said that the servant's expression was crooked, and so he called Jian to fix it. As the boy moved forward, Yang shouted from the background that his brother was in the third realm of true martial arts. Hearing this, one of the students told Yuan that he would help by defeating the challenger for him. However, Jian claimed that he was too weak and invited them all to come together. This attitude was obviously enough to make the hero proud and Han desperate. With her, the two brothers had always been polite in the Sword Garden, so this behavior was unexpected. Intervening, the girl explained that besides all the warriors being in the third level, there were some special ones among them. However, the protagonist simply ignored her and told his brother to go ahead and beat up the nobles. In response to the provocation, Lu invoked the name of the school to approve the fight, stating that it was allowed since neither were students. Jian, however, didn't care about any of that and insulted the boys for being so cowardly. His opponent, though, used an ice fist technique to initiate the confrontation. This showed that he was a celestial Taoist master, and Han became very anxious, given the extremely high level of this academy. The warrior charged at Jian at high speed, but when he punched him in the stomach, nothing happened. Logically, the boy panicked and little by little realized the difference between the two. Jian let a direct punch hit him, but even so, he was fine and didn't take a step back. The warrior couldn't understand how the ice energy had dissipated, but before he could think, he took a punch to the face that hit him squarely. Seeing this, the hero began to laugh and mockingly said that he had asked Jian to fix the boy's face, not to twist it further. In this case, Jian apologized and asked if he should punch again to straighten it. Logically, the student no longer had the will to fight, so upon hearing that, he fainted from fear. Lu, in turn, wasn't pleased at all with his ally's performance, nor with Jian's strength. However, some girls were quite impressed, and because of this, on the very first day, Jian gained a few admirers. Faced with this, Lu still couldn't understand how the warrior neutralized the ice punch or how the true Kai dissipated within him. Thus, the boy unleashed his full aura and admitted that he had been pushed too far. He created a massive wave of energy, and this made Yang realize it was the fourth realm of true martial arts. Moreover, the boy was also a celestial Taoist, using the fire element in combat. In a display of power and grandeur, Lu created a huge fire phoenix. One of the students explained that this was the martial soul inherited from the Lu lineage, and because of this, it was said that the two boys would die. However, others still doubted it, as Jian had defeated Meng with a single punch, which showed that Jian had something up his sleeve. But despite everyone betting against him, Jian not only remained confident but also gave the middle finger and called for them all to face him together. This provocation, however, had the opposite effect on the spectators, who began to think the boy was an idiot. With his skill called courting death, Lu gathered a fiery aura around his hand. He quickly formed a spiral with his powers and launched it at Jian. One of the students commented that Lu was among the top 50 elite students in the southern courtyard. Moreover, among all the lower-level martial arts, the Divian Palm was the most compatible with the fire element. Thus, many said that Jian was completely out of luck. However, the boy did not back down and was already preparing to take the attack head-on. Seeing this, the students panicked, as an attack at such close range was definitely fatal. Then, one of Jian's admirers screamed for him to get out of the way of the attack, but it was already too late. Fortunately, the boy is no weakling, so there was no reason for the others to worry. At that moment, the clash of the two attacks creates a large cloud of smoke, and when it clears, everyone sees Jian standing strong without a single scratch on his body. Lu can understand how his opponent had the courage to take the hit, relying only on his own strength. Our hero, however, isn't surprised, because ever since his brother reached the true realm, he has already begun practicing the body of hegemony. Back in the fight, Jian now charges at his opponent without fear, unlike Lu, who is nearly in tears. After ending his fire attack, Jian grabs Lu by the arm and slams him hard to the ground. This was enough to make the boy dizzy, but Jian won a one-sided victory, so he stepped on Lu's stomach. Next, Lu took a punch to the face, and as he was getting hit, the hero mocked him, saying he should train more instead of talking. At this, the warrior's sister bursts into the arena, screaming for Jian to let go of her brother. However, as a true believer in equal rights, the hero shuts the woman up with a well-placed punch. Afterward, the girl stops and grabs a mirror to see what her face looks like. Seeing that she had lost both her teeth and the little beauty she had, the girl collapses to the ground in tears. With the fight over, Jian walks over to his brother and comments that those kids were really shameless. In any case, the hero recalls that he only asked Jian to straighten out their mouths, but even so, the boy struck them in the face. The academy students, however, now have a terrible impression of the heroes, viewing them as truly shameless individuals. In this context, Yang shouts for some newcomer to show up and take the seniors away. Lu gets even angrier, as now someone who didn't even fight and is mocking him. Han, on the other hand, calls for the hero to leave the academy now that the conflict is over. However, Yang has no intention of leaving, as he still hasn't found Vixen there. The hero says that the martial decree applies to students of the same rank, and since they aren't students, no exceptions will be made. Thus, Han becomes very concerned, realizing that the boy is learning a few tricks from Jian. Apologizing, Jian admits that he accidentally used a bit more force than necessary in starting the duel. Faced with this, Han explains that the academy won't care, but since Lu is an elite student, his fellow students will surely come. In this context, even the main students from the central area might be sent, which is why the girl advises Yang to leave the place. Yang, of course, is unfazed by any of this and mocks the situation, noting that even Lingxi is one of those central students. It's said that each of these students is a favorite child of the heavens, and Lu doesn't compare to them, as many are at the 9th level. Furthermore, some have already reached the martial seed realm. In this case, Yang begins to reconsider, thinking that the true domain might not be enough, and he wasn't expecting students to be that strong. Although there are opponents at the 9th level, the hero says they won't come back, as the master said they should show respect to the academy. What the hero calls respect, Han understands as an excuse to see Lingxi, and like a true shameless person, Yang confirms this. In that case, the girl informs him that Lingxi is from the eastern courtyard, so the protagonist can't go to the central area. To explain further, Han says there are main areas in the 4 courtyards and students who are not essential cannot enter. But regardless, Yang insists that they have to take a look first and can't simply leave empty-handed. So even after warning him, Han decides to tag along to satisfy her curiosity. After some time walking, our hero arrives at a certain building with Jian and Han. However, Han becomes desperate because standing in front of them are elite students from the southern courtyard, and alongside them are Lu and his sister, who is now wearing a mask to cover her face. Seeing this, the hero anxiously asks if this is the 6th level of the true martial realm. Then he asks the girl if it's too late to run. Yang's lack of confidence only serves to make her even more panicked. In any case, the hero suggests that the two should just engage in a simple training session. In light of this, the veteran asked if Lu was really defeated by the boy who was speaking. However, Lu didn't feel like responding and instead reiterated that if the man won, he would double the reward. Thus, the veteran got excited and prepared to fight, summoning a purple energy. This energy came from the lightning element, and with a hand gesture, he launched an electric blast toward Jian. Unfortunately, the boy managed to defend himself with his sword, but the strike left a considerable scratch. Seeing this, the veteran complimented the boy's strength, but immediately prepared an even stronger attack. Since there wasn't enough time to respond to the strike, our hero decided to intervene and took Jian's sword. With that, the protagonist used the ability he had stolen from the sword cemetery and released an energy that overpowered all others. Soon, the energy blasts started to approach the nobles, but the veteran wasn't about to let the fight end so easily. He countered it with a defense aura of the same size and power, although he managed to defend himself. The same didn't happen for the others, so the boy began to feel slightly wary of our hero. At that moment, a few other students arrived due to the immense noise the two were making. In this case, Yang unexpectedly declared that something had come up, so he decided to leave without seeing Lingxi. However, before leaving, the protagonist didn't miss the chance to humiliate the southern courtyard, mocking the strength of its warriors. Furthermore, he told everyone to listen carefully as he loudly and clearly announced his name. With that, both Yang and Jian rushed off toward their new objective, leaving Han behind. And with all this, Lu began to harbor a hatred for our protagonist that would later fuel a desire for revenge. Later, elsewhere, the star witch Yu Xiaoxin appeared and entered her training courtyard. She observed Lingxi and, with a touch of concern, told her that she had been training too much and needed to rest a little. Lingxi, in turn, asked which senior genius had organized a tea party this time and reiterated her lack of interest in attending such an event. In response, Yu acknowledged that the girl was superior and didn't care for parties or related matters. Nevertheless, Yu stated that she was in a good mood today because her master had finally agreed to teach her the Manhwa hand technique. This is a mid-grade martial art of the profound order that suits the girl's soul very well. Thus, Lingxi shared in her friend's happiness and expressed surprise at the consideration her master showed toward Yu. Changing the subject, the witch mentioned that she had heard an interesting story that had occurred earlier in the day in the southern courtyard, which gave her a good laugh. Such gossip naturally piqued Lingxi's interest, so Yu explained that a few elite disciples were defeated by 2 foreign boys. It was said that the students lost even though they had the advantage in cultivation level, which was a tremendous embarrassment. In this case, Lingxi found it strange as all the talented youths of Tainan were in this academy. What made more sense at the moment was the idea that the boys were geniuses from other regions who had come to Chang'an to prove their strength. Yu said that in addition to defeating the regular disciples, they even threatened to challenge the top students. But both she and Lingxi thought this was utter madness, given the boys' cultivation level. By the way, you also mentioned that one of the boys mentioned Lingxi's name, and that boy was Yang Chen. At this, Lingxi lost her composure completely and in total shock asked if she had heard correctly. Noticing her friend's strange behavior, Yu asked if Lingxi knew this boy. With a very embarrassed expression, Lingxi began to wonder what the hero was doing there so early. In any case, she asked if he was the only one who had come to this martial arts academy. Yu then informed her that there was another boy with him in the southern courtyard, and his name was Jian. In this case, Lingxi decided to leave in a hurry, leaving Yu quite surprised and curious. She also became very concerned for her friend, thinking that she might be being deceived. Back at the Blade Garden, Han collapsed face down on the table from exhaustion. But just as she was about to rest, she heard some noises at the door, signaling that her piece was over. Without delay, she got up and opened the door once again to receive the visitors. As expected, the visitors turned out to be 2 of Jian's admirers. Faced with this, despite being embarrassed, Han tried to say she didn't know where the boy was. However, the girls kept asking questions about his whereabouts. Han started to sweat nervously, and they eventually concluded they wouldn't get any answers there. The more mature of the 2 called her friend to leave, the other insisted on belittling Han for keeping 2 talented boys to herself. Once they left, Han closed the door and sighed in relief, but at that very moment, someone else knocked. Already irritated, the girl opened the door and shouted that she didn't know where the boys were. However, the person standing before her wasn't an admirer but Lingxi. Realizing her mistake, Han became worried, but Lingxi got straight to the point and asked where the boys were. In this case, Han responded by saying that both Yang and Jian were in the Sword Garden. With that, Lingxi turned and thanked her. But before she left, Han shouted and asked to be taken along. Later, the 2 arrived at the garden and the first person they encountered was Aunt Jing. Seeing this, Han quickly greeted her relative and Jing couldn't help but notice that someone else was there too. In this case, the aunt commented that Lingxi looked a lot like her mother, which is why she wasn't surprised that Yang was so fascinated by her. Lingxi thanked her, though with some hesitation knowing that this was her mother's rival. In any case, Jing told the girl to go see her father, who was also in the garden. Within seconds, the two girls reached where the master was, and Lingxi became frantic upon noticing that her father's cultivation had vanished. In response, Bagwan joked, saying that because he had such a beautiful face, God got jealous and punished him by taking away his abilities. Even though it was a serious matter, Lingxi still managed to laugh a lot and let the issue go for the moment. However, when she noticed Yang's presence and realized he was involved, she pulled on his ear. She questioned how Yang had the nerve to show up there after everything, and our hero tried his best to explain his side of the story. In this case, the master asked his daughter not to blame his disciple, and out of respect for her father, she let him go. In response, the protagonist told her not to worry because he would definitely heal Daddy. This affectionate way of referring to the master only irritated Lingxi even more than before. At that moment, the same man who had taken the girl to Channon appeared. Upon arriving at the garden, the old man said that Lingxi needed to return to the academy immediately. In this case, the girl questioned whether the man thought he had the right to control her. In response, he said that his duty was to ensure the young miss's safety, and as such, some rules had to be followed. Changing the subject, he turned to the master, saying that Bao Wang would die for breaking the agreement and sneaking into Channon. However, even having lost his cultivation, the Sword Saint said he wasn't afraid of death and stood to face the old man head-on. Seeing the advantage he now had over the saint, the old man used his aura to intimidate him. But quickly, Jing stepped in front of Bagwang to defend him. Understanding that Bagwang was no longer a threat, the old man warned that the Shadow Assassin Tower could still find the saint in Channon. He said that forces greater than his family existed, advising Bagwang to only contact his daughter occasionally. Without delay, he resumed his point, asking the young miss to return to the academy. He warned that too much attention had been drawn to her and that if she didn't want to bring disaster to the Sword Garden, she should avoid coming to this place. Bagwang, in turn, accepted to send his daughter back, telling her that she would only be able to command her own destiny through her own power. The hero tried to convince the girl not to leave, saying they still had time to discuss the issues that had upset her. But Lingxi paid no attention to these comments and soon returned with her guardian. Some time ago, the hero's grandfather had spoken to him about moments of pain and the endless obstacles that continue to appear. In this case, he said that almost 99% of people would be filled with hatred and would frantically seek to increase their strength. However, they forget that an individual's power is limited. After all, pure power also has its limits. Faced with this, he asked what the protagonist would do if it happened to him. In the end, what the old man was trying to teach was that, beyond martial arts, there was a power capable of solving many problems called wisdom. That day, Yang learned to think twice about everything and to strive to become a wise man while strengthening himself. After Lingxi left, the master asked his disciple if he was feeling uncomfortable and irritated. However, Yang said no, which made Bao Wang nervous because he himself was outraged by it. The saint advised that if his student was angry, he should run and increase his strength. But the protagonist simply drank tea and began praising its flavor notes, making the master think Yang had gone mad. After some reflection, the protagonist asked Aunt Jing to inform him about the current situation in the city, including the major forces. And of course, he asked for more details about the forces that had rivalries with the master. This sudden, thoughtful behavior of his reckless student made Ba Wen proud. To organize his thoughts, Yang compared everything to a chess game, saying that even though there were many pieces, they still couldn't overturn the board. To the hero, both running and killing are the work of an evil man, but in chess, they will be swallowed just like any other piece. In this case, the master began to see his disciple in a new light, and without delay, Yang stood up to go cultivate. Thus, Bao Wang finally concluded that accepting this child as his student hadn't been a bad decision. The next morning, the hero went to see Aunt Jing, who was ready to share everything. Promptly, she handed the boy a book with information about the forces in Channon, and with that, Yang could study on his own. Thus, Yang thanked her with a smile, and Jing told him to do his best because she was rooting for him. It was said that in Nanxing, the three most powerful forces were the Channon Academy, the Duan Mansion, and the Mansion of the Shadow Assassins. Because of this, the boy thought it was a miracle that his master was still alive after offending all these associations. And now there was another one, the county governor, who was part of the Golden Eagle clan. This was a checkmate game and a tough one for our hero to play with his current strength. Later, during dinner, the master asked if his disciple really wanted to be like a chess player. In this case, the protagonist replied that a true chess player simply watches without saying a single word. Thus, Bao Wang went back to eating and decided to let his disciple solve these problems with his own methods. Jing tried to maintain her composure, but Jing clearly didn't understand anything. Changing the subject, Jing mentioned that a young girl from the Uncle Master's family had faced some people from the sacred realm and had been poisoned by the death flower. When this information reached Bao Wang's ears, he became very curious. The master thought that Uncle Shi must have a daughter around the same age as Lingxi. Manhwa was said to be a very powerful celestial poison, and because of this, he feared it would be difficult to find an antidote even in all of Eastern Land. In this case, he asked how the legendary Manhua poison could exist in the secret realm of Channon, which piqued Jian's curiosity. To clear up the boy's doubts, Aunt Jing explained that the sacred realm was a magical space. There are many of different sizes and most are irrelevant, but in some realms there are not only rare treasures but also inheritances and powerful beings. The master noted that the entrance to the city's secret realm was still the same, and this was the reason Chang'an Academy had become so strong. However, only the top disciples were allowed to enter, but Yang saw this more as an opportunity to stand out. That's because for most people, Manhwa poison is fatal, but for him, who has the techniques of the ancient demon dragon, there might be a way to solve it. Thus, he told his master that Shay was in big trouble and that they should go visit him. In this case, the saint asked if Yang was trying to get him to humble himself to secure a spot in the academy for the hero. Then the master warned that his uncle wasn't one for conversation, but Yang explained his plan to cure the poisoning. Faced with this, Bao didn't quite understand what the boy was talking about when it came to healing. So the hero informed him that his martial spirit was a bit different from the others. At this, the sword saint realized he hadn't asked about it yet and then inquired about the boy's martial spirit. In response, Jian stands up and says that his brother's martial spirit is the best in the world. This, of course, doesn't convince Bao, so Yang explains that he actually has two spirits, the first being the sword spirit and the second, a martial arts spirit. In this case, the master says he doesn't care about these trivial things and returns to the main topic, asking if the boy can really cure the poison. After thinking for a moment, the protagonist says he's at least 70% sure. With 70% certainty, that's enough for the saint to decide to take his student to see his uncle. Later, the three warriors go to the Shi Palace, but they are quickly stopped by guards. One of the guards promptly informs them that disciples from other regions are not allowed to enter the central area, but Bao quickly shows a passage token to the guards, leaving them completely shocked. Because of this, they no longer have any reason to block the boy's entry. Upon entering, someone quickly recognizes the presence of the famous sword saint and asks why he has come. Without hesitation, the sword saint tells his uncle that he came to ask about Manhwa's poison. At that moment, Shai opens the gate, and as they enter, everyone inside is on edge. Among them is the head of the northern region of Tannan Martial Arts Academy. The first thing he notices about Bao is the disappearance of his cultivation, leading him to ask who did this to him. To explain, the saint says he encountered a monster in Cheaj, and in an attempt to survive, he exhausted all his spiritual power. This explanation doesn't entirely convince Shai, but he doesn't press further. Regardless, Bao introduces his disciple and explains that he came because the boy claims to have a way to resolve the poisoning of his younger sister. Hearing this, Shi's expression changes and he asks if this involves a martial art for detoxification. Quickly, he asks what Yang's martial spirit is and whether he can manifest it. Jan, once again excited, almost blurts out his brother's secrets. But before he can speak, the hero covers his mouth and says that his spirit is of the devouring type and will likely be able to remove the poison. To demonstrate what he's saying, the protagonist begins to manifest his martial spirit. After gathering a large amount of his power, that aura monster begins to take shape. Within seconds, the hero summons the monster from before in the mountains. The overwhelming pressure from the martial spirit is enough to make the northern chief break into a cold sweat. Bao is also surprised but disappointed that his student hid this from him. Regardless, Shai decides to try, but he believes that even with a top-level martial spirit, it will still be impossible to cure the poison. Standing up, he asks the boy to follow him, and when they reach the room where the girl is, her condition is dire. Shai says that he managed to push the poison into her forehead and for now has sealed it, but the girl won't last much longer. Thus, the hero approaches the girl to try and releases his martial spirit. The aura begins to enter through the girl's forehead, and she becomes worried that this might break the seal. However, Bao stops his uncle before he can do anything he might regret. This is because the poison was already leaving the girl's body, and Yang was gradually handling everything. In the end, the girl was completely free from the celestial poison, and she couldn't have been happier. However, our hero was still focused on finishing the process, so right after Yang was done, Shai rushed to check on his daughter. Realizing that she was fine, the northern chief tells Bao that he now owes him a great favor. The saint, however, replies that he did nothing, and that all the credit should go to his disciple. Regardless, Shai is grateful to all three of them, and to show his gratitude, he invites the boys for tea. In response, the sword saint remarks that his uncle is focusing too much on the external, and in the end, it's the girl's spirit and youth that matter. After curing the girl, Jian notices that his brother seems a bit off. The hero reassures him, saying that he'll be fine after some rest. With that, Bao mentions that the tea they're about to have is a rare treasure, and it will help them recover their strength. Later, the master arrives with the teapot and cups, and the first to taste is our hero. He really enjoyed the taste of the tea, and for that reason, he recommended that his brother try it as well. So Jan and Yang began drinking like two animals, and Bao grew furious with their lack of manners. Faced with this, she said he wanted to be the saint's apprentice too, as he was really enjoying the boy's enthusiasm. The saint tried his best to remain calm while explaining that tradition must be followed. Changing the subject, the man mentioned that 3 years ago, he had asked Master Goshi to calculate Lane Pai's fate. This master had said that the girl's future was precious, but a certain celestial Taoist had foreseen her death. Hearing this, Yang was surprised to know there was one of those in the region. Ba Wang then reminded him that this world is very vast, so there's nothing that doesn't exist somewhere. In any case, she said he knew what the saint was thinking and asked if he wanted the two boys to join the academy. Bao Wang obviously agreed, and for that reason, Shai invited everyone to enter his northern courtyard. He mentioned that after the saint's accident, his master had been devastated and stopped teaching apprentices, unlike him, who had taken Lingxi into the academy. Bao Wang thanked him, and interrupting the conversation, Yang asked if he could enter the eastern courtyard to learn the way of the sword with his master. Naturally, the sword saint refused, but the hero couldn't understand why. In this case, Shai explained that Yang wasn't even eligible to enter, as the relationship between martial houses was very complicated. Thus, the hero calmed down a bit and accepted his situation. Changing the subject again, she asked if the master's second disciple was already practicing some type of martial art. If not, he inquired if Jian was interested in becoming his apprentice. Faced with this offer, the protagonist was quite surprised, and Jian without hesitation accepted. She was very pleased with this, but Jian noticed something different in his brother's expression. This was because now the hero could no longer see Bao Wang with the same strength as before. For that reason, the saint punched Yang on the head, telling him he didn't need the academy to grow stronger. Thus, the hero was happy for his brother, but also sad for being the only one with a cheap master. Naturally, Bao Wang overheard those words, so Yang, fearing for his life, quickly apologized. Shai, in turn, commented that the hero had the talents of an elite student, and if it weren't for the rules, he could practice in the main area. In this case, the boy felt a bit awkward, but before he could respond, Bao Wang interrupted him. 3 days later, after the two boys were admitted to the northern courtyard of Tannen Academy, some students spotted our hero, and one of them said he had heard that Yang was only at the second level of true martial arts. Because of that, they believed the rumor that he had defeated elite students from the southern courtyard was a farce. The female students, however, commented on other rumors about the boy's beauty. By a stroke of luck, the protagonist approached them to ask where the training grounds were. Naturally, the two girls became quite embarrassed by such a question. One of them informed him that the Northern Academy didn't have its own training grounds, as all 4 courtyards shared the same one. In this case, the girl offered to go with the protagonist to the location, and he thanked her. Later, the 3 arrived at the spot, and our hero said goodbye to the girls. Once there, Yang noticed his brother, who called out to him. Yang asked if Jian had learned any new martial arts from old Shai. Unexpectedly, the boy replied yes, saying that he had learned a very powerful punch technique called the Panlong Punch. In this case, our hero asked what grade that martial art was, but unfortunately, Jian hadn't been informed. Suddenly, some unpleasant people showed up to torment the boys once again. Among them were Lu and his sister, who mocked the hero for securing a spot in the academy. In this case, Yang commented that he had noticed the boy's mouth had healed, but found it strange that Lu was provoking them again. The noble naturally became irritated by this, and his sister defended him, saying that someone from the southern courtyard would teach the boy a lesson. Faced with this, the hero told them to feel free, as even if they all teamed up, they wouldn't win. That arrogance made the girl even angrier, but since they had already seen the hero's strength, the nobles withdrew. In any case, the hero considered those boys to be nothing but cowards and didn't mind letting them go. Suddenly, a boy appeared and asked if the boy in front of him was Yang Chen. Yang, for his part, asked if something had happened, and the boy explained that he had heard the hero was someone strong. Because of that, he hands a letter of challenge to the protagonist, but Yang tears it up without even reading it. It was an invitation to a duel, but Yang didn't see the boy as worthy, so he walked away. 10 days later, at the training grounds, people began to think of the hero as a coward. Many talked about how Yang had torn up all the duel invitations so far, and this interpretation of events made the hero angry. In response, the protagonist shouted that he wasn't a coward and would only fight when someone qualified appeared. Promptly, the gossipers left, but another person appeared and asked if they were qualified to challenge Yang. Turning to see who it was, the hero realized it was Lai Heng, a member of the Golden Eagle family. Without wasting time, the protagonist asked who this boy was that had suddenly shown up. Lai Heng introduced himself as a member of the Golden Eagle family. Immediately, our hero realized that another problem had appeared, so he accepted the challenge. As soon as Yang accepted, the news of the challenge spread quickly, becoming the main topic at the academy. Because of this, many students decided to go to the location of the fight to watch. When they arrived, many were cheering for the boy from the Golden Eagle family, but some girls were part of the hero's fan club. Inside the arena, a mediator announced that the fight would follow the rules they had agreed upon. Lai Heng then commented that although he had heard that Yang was arrogant, he hadn't expected the boy to choose to fight without rules. Obviously, this surprised everyone, but our hero wasn't afraid of a battle to the death, even though he didn't plan to kill the young man. He stated that he didn't mind fighting without rules, but if the boy died, his family would cause many problems. Lai Heng, for his part, said that this wasn't courage, but recklessness. In any case, the protagonist asked what he was willing to wager. Lai Heng mocked the boy's proposal, saying that nothing Yang could offer would be worth it. In response, our hero pulled out a mid-grade yellow ring, showing that even though he was poor, he still had valuable things. This surprised everyone, especially the mediator, who began to question the boy's sanity for betting the ring. The students, however, recognized the value of the object and quickly started commenting that Lai Hang wouldn't have anything to match it. Our hero made sure to show off the item and provoke the Golden Eagle family boy as much as possible. Now it was the protagonist who called the boy poor, saying he would be content if at least 1,000 low-quality spirit stones were added to the bet. Lai Hang was obviously very irritated, but to avoid embarrassment, he stepped out of the arena and asked Liu for some spirit stones. From Liu, he managed to get 205 stones, but that wasn't enough, so the boy also took some from his sister. After gathering enough, the young master threw all the stones to the mediator while boasting. This action made our hero mock Lai even more, seeing that he had to borrow spirit stones for the bet. Changing the subject, Yang asked the mediator if the rules were limited to not killing anyone in the arena. In response, she said that was for them to discuss. In this case, Lai Hang was willing to bet his life, so he questioned if the hero had the courage to do the same. Yang, of course, accepted the terms, as this was the perfect opportunity to get rid of another member of the Golden Eagle family. After 5 breaths, the fight began, and the first to make a move was Lai Hang. The students were surprised by the boy's potential, as he had reached the 6th level of the true martial realm. Unlike him, our hero was only at the 3rd level, which lowered the spectators' hopes for Yang even more. Without wasting time, the Golden Eagle boy used his abilities, the Golden Feather Pouch. He quickly prepared an attack, but Yang simply remarked that it looked impressive and countered with his own power. Though it caused some trouble, Lai Hang's ability demonstrated more strength, raking through the hero's technique. At that moment, the boy's fist struck Yang in the stomach. Lai Hang was filled with pride and hatred, ready to send Yang to the afterlife. When Lai Hang's strike hit the hero, the light from the attack was so intense that it caused discomfort to the audience. However, the blow hadn't actually hit the protagonist, but rather a thin protective barrier. This was part of the hero's ability, and as the power came into contact with the boy's hand, it started to leak out. Similar to a dark power, it began consuming the Golden Eagle boy. In this context, the protagonist advised the boy to stay still because he wouldn't be able to win. Lai Hang realized he was in danger, but it was already too late to run or give up. With just a punch surrounded by demonic aura, our hero sent the boy flying across the arena. After hitting the ground, the only thing Lai Hang could think about was the pain he was feeling. To add to that, the protagonist stepped on the boy's chest and asked if he could finish him off according to the game's rules. Naturally, the warrior pleaded with the last of his strength for the hero to show mercy. To gain some favor at the academy, the hero decided to let Lai Hang go, pretending to do so out of goodwill. Either way, for the Golden Eagle boy, the deal couldn't have been better, and he expressed his gratitude. From the student's perspective, a girl remarked that she saw Yang's dantian get hit, leaving the mystery of how the boy remained unharmed. In any case, the hero collected his reward from the fight and told Jian that now they could have a great meal. As the two walked away, all those who had called Yang a coward now admired the strength of the newcomer. After stuffing themselves with food, the brothers returned to the Blade Garden, dancing with joy. However, upon arriving where the master was, they realized they were interrupting his private moment. This was because Jing was giving the saint a shoulder massage, and he was complaining about the pain. Naturally, the boys were embarrassed, but Yang seemed more excited than embarrassed. Regardless, upon seeing his student, Bagwan became furious, as Yang had already returned to the garden after just 2 days of cultivation. However, both Yang and Jian still couldn't respond normally after witnessing that scene. As a result, Bagwan grew even more irritated but understood that his foolish student was like a rock that only moved when kicked. Changing the subject, Jian asked how the cultivation environment was in Wufu, in the northern region. Yang commented that it was the best sacred place for cultivation, with an incredible martial arts training field. Hearing this, the girl asked the boy to enter the main area before the end of the year. Every year, just before the festival, the top students of the 4 courtyards receive an extraordinary fortune. Naturally, the hero became curious about this, so the master explained that this fortune was related to the secret realm of Tannen. In this case, the protagonist asked what was so special about that place. Realizing that Bao hadn't said anything about it, Jing became annoyed but offered to explain. She explained that most of the secret space was unstable and, as time passed, it would collapse, so there were rules that limited the energy level inside. Since neither of the boys understood yet, Jing continued. This energy limit was actually a cultivation limit, which meant that those who were powerful in the sky couldn't enter. Additionally, if the secret space wasn't restricted, the warriors authorized to enter would accelerate the collapse rate. It was said that the Tianan secret realm was controlled by Wufu, and that's why Yang needed to become a core student at the academy to participate. The secret realm was vast, and there were rumors about many inheritances left by powerful people. In the end, Jing said it was unfortunate that no one had found anything yet, but now our hero would have a chance to enter the game. Shortly after the explanation, the brothers were kicked out of the Blade Garden. Our hero complained about his master, saying he was afraid they would disturb his afternoon romance. However, Bao Guang simply ordered the boys to return to the academy to continue practicing. Additionally, he threw Xiao Hai in the hero's face, saying that the dog was bothering him. At that moment, the hero's indignation was huge, but since it was an order from his master, there was nothing he could do. As they returned to the academy, Yang kept wondering why Bao Wang wanted him to practice martial arts. But soon the protagonist realized that at least bringing the dog along wasn't such a bad idea. Because of this, he became famous among a group of beautiful women. However, the fact that they were caressing him and not the hero made Yang quite jealous. After some time, the two finally arrived at the central area of the northern campus. Before they could even knock on the door, the girl they had saved earlier opened it from the inside and was happy to see Jan. Obviously, Yang didn't understand what was going on, and neither did the girl, as she hadn't met the protagonist yet. In this case, Jian explained that the person beside him was his brother and the one who had saved her. Ling Pei then started to size up her savior and quickly commented that the boy was as ugly as she had expected. Another thing she said was that the hero seemed to attract both good and bad things, which Yang didn't quite understand. But at that moment, the boy thought this was probably something the old man had put into the girl's head. Regardless, Yang found the girl's behavior strange, as if she was looking for something. He then complimented his brother's abilities for having won Ling Pei's heart. The embarrassed looks between the two revealed everything, but the girl insisted on asking what the hero meant by that. Furthermore, she said she should be called Master, which made Yang think she might be from an older generation than him. In this case, the boy suggested that Ling Pei start calling him brother, but the expression on his face wasn't convincing at all. Unlike the hero, Xiao Hai caught the girl's attention in a positive way. However, the pet wasn't happy at all about being seen as a mere mascot. Even so, the hero decided to hand Xiao Hai over to the girl, and this betrayal made Xiao Hai consider killing his owner once he grew up. Changing the subject, Ling Pei mentioned that she had heard the boy defeated Lai Heng. In this case, the hero laughed and asked if her uncle was the one who told her that. In response, the girl said her uncle had sent him to train there for 3 months and not to brag about his victory. Thus, after the training, the grounds would be his, and Yang was pleased that her uncle had recognized his talent. With a new mission to complete, our hero declared that he would stay and train hard. 3 months later, at the main campus in the north, the protagonist was training his sword techniques. With a powerful strike, he managed to slice a huge rock in front of him in half. Assessing the power of the attack, he realized that his brother's sword technique had reached the realm of great success. Xiao Hai, however, remained as cute and small as he had been 3 months ago. Faced with this, the hero asked if the pet was hungry and if he wanted more of those spirit stones. So Yang quickly gave the little one of his spirit stones. Since Xiao Hai was eating 1 piece per day, the hero started to think that he would go broke sooner or later. Therefore, he realized that he needed to find another way to earn money. But just then, someone appeared. Along with his brother was Jing Pei, who was looking for Xiao Hai. Thus, the hero came up with an idea to solve his problems. Quickly, our hero commented on the two returning home at the same time. Jian was happy to see his brother, while the girl seemed a little embarrassed. In any case, Xiao Hai was also excited and ran to jump into Jing Pei's arms. As the girl held the pet, she smiled and asked if his master had been tormenting him. In response, our hero said that if the girl liked the pet so much, she would keep him for a while. Logically, she was overjoyed and asked if he was joking, but the protagonist stood by his word. Thus, Jing Pei smiled and told Xiao Hai that from now on, he would be going on walks with his sister. Immediately, the girl began to enjoy her time with the pet, even kissing him on the cheek. Changing the subject, the protagonist mentioned that he had advanced to the 4th level and asked about his brother's progress. Yang said this because lately he had only seen his brother hanging out with that girl. Thus, Jing Pei defended her colleague, saying that the real challenge was at the 6th level, so the 4th level was nothing to brag about. Naturally, the hero didn't believe this, and Jian remained expressionless. Changing the subject again, the girl called for our hero to come along as the tutors were waiting for them. Yang, for his part, doesn't understand where they are supposed to go or who these tutors are. Jing explains that the evaluation for the central area is happening now, and this is Yang's chance to secure his spot. Hearing this, the hero gets excited, knowing that it's something he has to handle on his own. Jing Pei tells Yang to go ahead, as both she and Jian will be returning to the garden. Before leaving, the protagonist thinks for a moment and then reminds them that Xiao Hai needs to eat 1 spirit stone per day. At first, Ling Pei doesn't understand what Yang is saying and asks for clarification, so Jian explains that it's exactly what she heard. In this case, the girl pulls a spirit stone from her pocket, and Xiao Hai starts drooling with desire. Seeing the pet's cute face, Ling Pei gives him the stone, and unexpectedly, Xiao Hai crushes it. Both the girl and Jian are left baffled by what just happened. Even though it was a low-quality spirit stone, Xiao Hai was still able to eat it like normal food. Ling Pei then asks Jian what kind of animal this is and where Yang got it. Since he hadn't thought of a better excuse beforehand, the boy says Yang found it on the street. Naturally, that excuse didn't convince Ling Pei. She asked again where Xiao Hai was found, but Jian insisted that he didn't know. So she said she would ask Yang herself the next time she saw him because she wanted one too. Meanwhile, our hero arrived at the central region of the academy and introduced himself for evaluation. At that moment, he was greeted by a man who downplayed the boy's cultivation level, but praised his ability to win fights against stronger warriors. Because of this, Yang was called forward, and another person added that they had heard about his victory over Lai Heng. In any case, the old man didn't believe the rumor, and changing the subject, he ordered Meng Te to stop practicing with his peers. Addressing the boy, the old man informed Meng Te that Yang was there for the test and therefore he shouldn't go easy on him. Finally, Meng Te introduced himself as a warrior of the 6th level of the true martial arts realm. In response, our hero said that he wouldn't give any advice to his challenger. Naturally, none of the instructors understood what Yang meant by that. Before the fight, Meng Te asked if the boy was going to give up due to his low cultivation level. However, what the hero meant was that one opponent wouldn't be enough for him. So the protagonist called for all 5 fighters to come at him at once. Meng Te didn't like this arrogance at all and interpreted it as an attempt to belittle him. But the hero was being sincere and reinforced that just one opponent wouldn't be enough. As a result, Meng Te grew increasingly angry at the arrogance of this apprentice candidate. At that moment, the hero remembered his master's advice that the 4th Academy was a different kind of place. Bao Guang had said that to seize opportunities, the boy would need to show his strength through arrogance. In this case, Yang maintained his posture and called Meng Te to the fight. Within seconds, his opponent was the first to move to attack, and Yang noticed that this was a celestial Taoist attack using the earth element. As the attack approached the hero, he began preparing a counterattack. Yang used his sword nature to break the earth formation and disable the boy's arm. Faced with this, Meng Te began to question what kind of skill it was. Without delay, one of the instructors recognized that this was the power of the Lingshan sword, and upon noticing Yang's performance, he was pleased. The old man, on the other hand, believed that the northern campus was about to receive a new monster. At that moment, the chief appeared, reminding them that even though several months had passed, Yang had only reached the 4th level. With that, he told Yang not to be lazy just because he had some talent, as the hero's talent wasn't even considered worthy of the 4 courtyards. Yang didn't take this well and thought the old man was being insulting. Nonetheless, the chief added that he didn't know what Bao Guang saw in the boy. But now that the protagonist had managed to enter the central area of the campus, he should treat the chief as the authority. The hub says that the hero's mission now is to reach the 9th level, but even so, he will still need to develop his sword aura. Thus, the old instructor comments that the head is being very cruel, as he even set a deadline for this to be done by the end of the year. With only 6 months left until the new year, the hero has no choice, and soon the news starts spreading around the academy. Obviously, the students don't understand how this is possible, since the protagonist is only at the 4th level. Back at the main courtyard, Jian appears and calls for his master, who asks why he's come. In this case, the boy begins to talk about his brother, so the master asks if Jian can reach the 9th level before the end of the year. In response, the boy says yes, so the host questions why he can do it, and his brother cannot. Thus, Jian begins to think that his master is right, as he knows Yang's talent. But in any case, for the head of the northern courtyard, Jian reaching that level is not enough. This is because he's practicing Panlongquan, which is very different from Yang's Lingshan sword power. In any case, Jian says he will train as much as he can, which satisfies Shi somewhat. Meanwhile, our hero faces the harsh reality of his new home for the next few days. Yang is furious, as even though he has become a student of the central area, he is still being treated like trash. Despite everything, this region houses the Qianjin Tower, which is the main weapon for training in the northern region. Faced with this, the hero asks what this place is and how it can improve his cultivation. In response, Jing Pai explains that the Qianjin area is far inferior to the cultivation weapons in the central areas of the other courtyards. However, to avoid discouraging Yang, she tells him that for physical training, this place is unmatched. In this case, the hero rushes off to check it out for himself before Jing Pai can finish explaining. When he arrives, the first thing the protagonist notices is the immensity of the tower, which reaches beyond the clouds. Suddenly, he notices some writing on the wall, which catches his attention. The writing details the ranking of the top performers, and unexpectedly, Qiu Zhenxiu is in 97th place. Regardless, the hero wonders why no one on the list has gone beyond the 6th floor. Since the tower has 9 floors, he decides to check it out for himself, although he doesn't yet know how difficult the first floor will be. Unexpectedly, the moment Yang enters the first floor, a strong gravitational force pulls him to the ground. Faced with this, he uses his aura and barely manages to break free. Inside the first floor of the tower, Yang notices the presence of some fighters practicing, and on the other side is the entrance to the upper floors. However, Yang sits down as he hadn't expected the gravity on the first floor to be so terrifying. Half an hour later, the hero begins to realize that the cultivation speed can be increased in this place. However, for this to happen, it's necessary to protect the body with Kai, which is something that almost no one can do. Even so, one of the few can is the protagonist, as he has the true Eye of celestial thunder and the sun. In this case, he decides to search for the stone room to confirm his hunch. Then, noticing that one of the training rooms had opened up, our hero wastes no time and rushes inside. However, just as he's about to close the door, a warrior shouts, saying that this training zone belongs to him. Yang, for his part, doesn't care since he got there first, and he simply shuts the door in the man's face. Obviously, this action leaves the warrior furious, and he demands to know who this person is. In response, one of the students informs him that it's Yang Chen, who was recently admitted as a central courtyard student. because he's a newcomer. This disrespect makes the man even angrier. In this case, a girl says that Yang is unlucky because, as a novice, he doesn't yet know the rules. Furthermore, she points out that he had the audacity to offend Shi Feng, leading many warriors to consider expelling the boy. Inside, the hero struggles tremendously to stay on his feet, as the gravity there is even stronger. Quickly, the boy pulls out his spirit stone and absorbs it to test the cultivation response. At that moment, he feels happy because he was right in thinking that the refinement speed would be faster. However, after absorbing another stone, something begins to go wrong in Yang's body. Suddenly, his dragon soul begins to conflict with the sword soul, sending an overwhelming number of stimuli to his mind. At this moment, Yang feels an unimaginable pain, but with sheer willpower, he manages to maintain his composure. As things begin to settle down, the hero realizes he needs to check on the state of the sea of his consciousness. Upon arriving there, the protagonist wonders if this happened because of the level up in his dragon art. Without wasting time, the boy extends his hand and pulls out a book from within his soul. This was the Dragon Art Warriors book. In the book, it said that the user's battle body would need to unlock 36 hidden energy points in the body to access its power. Additionally, all 36 release points are located at the major joint nodes. By releasing all restrictions, the book claimed the user would be able to tear apart a true dragon with their bare hands. Hero thinks this is a joke, as even the weakest of them can easily destroy the entire eastern land. However, since the content of the first chapter had helped him so much in the past, Yang decides not to underestimate the second chapter. In this case, he recalls that the first point to be opened is located in the left wrist joint. With that, the protagonist begins the preparations but notices something strange. Despite being ready, he wasn't feeling any pain. However, obviously things wouldn't be that easy, and soon enough, all the pain came rushing in. Despite this, his aura was now on a completely different level than before, and his wrist felt a bit strange. However, this was a problem because if the acupuncture point wasn't condensed, he could lose the use of his hand. In this case, all the hero could do was continue to unlock the points as the book instructed. Outside, Shi Feng thought that even though he was at the peak of the 6th level, he could only stay in the stone chamber for half a day. With that in mind, he couldn't understand how the hero had been training there for an entire day, especially considering he was only at 4th level. This mystery only made the boy more curious to see Yang come out. However, since the hero had been taking so long, Shi Feng naturally began to suspect that the protagonist had died. So he approached the gate and punched it to try to open it. The stone chamber door only opens when someone dies inside, yet this time it insisted on staying closed. In this case, the instructor from the previous test appeared and asked what was going on. In response, Shi Feng explained that a boy named Yang had entered the chamber a day ago and had probably died in there. The instructor placed his hand on the gate, and that was enough for him to confirm that Yang was still alive. Shi Feng, of course, couldn't believe it, as an entire day and night had passed with the boy inside. The instructor then informed him that Yang was likely now stronger than the warrior. This left the boy very confused, but since it came from the instructor, he accepted it. Nonetheless, Shi Feng was still angry that Yang had the strength to access the 2nd floor and even take his training room. Returning to the hero's perspective, he was quite happy because his cultivation had improved significantly. It had only taken a day and a night to condense the first battle vein. Now the protagonist no longer had to exert much effort to deal with the gravity of the place. However, he still needed to deal with the hunger he was feeling. Realizing this, he knew it was time to leave and get something to eat. When Yang stepped out, the first person he saw was Shi Feng, who was visibly angry. Remembering this, Yang asked what the boy had seemed so upset about a day ago. Smartly, Shi Feng avoided the conflict and denied everything with a smile. Yang asked if he had heard wrong, and Shi shamelessly confirmed that he had. With that, the protagonist walked away, pondering the confusion his mind had created. After finally getting rid of Yang, the boy felt a great sense of relief. With a delicious feast in front of him, our hero began eating as much as he could. Since the awakening of his martial soul, the protagonist's appetite had been growing more and more. Soon after finishing the buffet, Yang was ready to return to training. To the surprise of the warriors on the 1st floor, just a few hours later, Yang was back. In this case, Shi Feng wondered if the boy would take another training hall and hoped he would move on to the next floor. To his delight, our hero successfully activates the seal to the 2nd floor. And as soon as the gate opens, Yang feels the immense pressure of the place. Faced with this, he realizes he was careless and activates his aura once again. After finishing his ascent, the hero cannot understand how the difficulty increased so much. Furthermore, he notices that there is no one else training there, not even in the seclusion rooms. With that in mind, the protagonist remarks that it seems the warriors have returned to the 1st floor. But suddenly, one of the training room doors opens and out steps the instructor from the admission test. Both Yang and the mentor are surprised to meet each other in that place. The instructor questions why Yang is there, but our hero just greets him with a smile. Seeing this, the mentor becomes very uneasy and starts stammering as he tries to explain that the boy shouldn't be there. In any case, the instructor is indignant and really wants to know how Yang managed to get there even though he's only at the 4th level. In response, the protagonist innocently asks if something is wrong with that. The mentor then explains that the boy isn't breaking any rules or anything like that. However, during the evaluation, the hero had mentioned that he had never practiced physical abilities before. So in reply, the boy states that he started practicing those abilities on the last day of training. Obviously, the instructor wasn't at all pleased with this unbelievable response. Then Yang announced that he could no longer bear being there and, without wasting time, ran for the stairs. Quickly, the boy went to the nearest training room and locked himself inside. Soon after, the instructor appeared and asked if any of the students had seen Yang Chen. Shifeng then questioned why Yang was constantly stealing his training rooms. Faced with this, the mentor asked the boy to be patient and to tell the hero when he comes out that he's looking for him. From our hero's perspective, the boy now feels quite comfortable in the training room. The reason he had to step back was that Yang realized he would need to open another energy point to remain on the second floor. Thus, our hero focused on his joints again, and now the pain came with unparalleled brutality. Unexpectedly, this time it was much more painful than the last time, when the point in his left wrist was released. Like before, the boy's aura began to leak, but given his current progress, he thought even 10 days wouldn't be enough. Faced with this sudden increase in difficulty, the hero finds it senseless because, at this rate, it would take hundreds of years to open the final stage. In this case, he wonders if this might be the reason for his frustration, so Yang makes a few adjustments to the release method. Fortunately, the new approach works so well that now the pain is gone. Yang hadn't expected the true energy of thunder to be so strong because, compared to the energy of the sun, it is much better for opening the points. Then, and after another day of training, the second opening was finally completed. With that, the boy began to gather his cultivation, and with his newfound power, Yang destroyed several rocks with just the wind from a punch. Shortly after our hero emerged from his seclusion, Shifeng informed him that instructor Hu Ting was looking for him. Yan, for his part, didn't know who this Hu Ting was, but he quickly associated it with the man from the test. Thus, the protagonist went to the martial arts hall of the region, and there he found the master. Wasting no time, the boy introduced himself and made himself available to answer the call. Turning around, Hu Ting noticed that the hero's aura had grown once again, leading him to suspect that Yang might possess a treasure. In any case, the instructor asked if the boy was willing to join him as his personal disciple. Obviously, all the secondary disciples were surprised that something so important was being offered just like that. However, the hero simply thanked him and declined the offer, explaining that he already had a master. In this case, Hu Ting pointed out that Central Courtyard students have permission to become disciples of multiple masters at the same time. This made our protagonist's eyes light up, but he still thought that his master wouldn't approve. Moreover, he said that if it upset him, it might harm his relationship with his master's daughter. In response, the instructor mentioned that he still didn't know who the boy's master was, to which Yang replied that it was Qian Baoguang. Hu Ting visibly grew irritated at this, but now he understood the boy's power. After that irritating conversation, the protagonist leaves the hall and returns to his temporary home. Upon arriving, the boy realizes that the third point won't be unlocked easily until he cultivates a bit more. Then, after 5 days, our hero finally reaches the 5th level of the true martial realm. With that, he believes it's time to check on Xiao Hai and the others. When he arrives at the place where everyone should be, the hero initially doesn't see anyone. Jing Pei then appears to guide him and quickly pulls him by the arm, making Yang feel somewhat uncomfortable. To explain herself, the girl says they are going to meet the chiefs of the southern and eastern regions who have come to congratulate her father. However, she mentions that this is likely just an excuse for something more important that hasn't been disclosed. In the central region of the palace, the master calls Yang over to meet Vice Director Fu Linshan of the southern campus and Vice Director Guan Yu of the eastern campus. Quickly, the boy bows in respect to his superiors. At that moment, Jian appears, making Yang realize that his brother has grown even stronger. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tab's channel.